Chapter 51. At the entrance of Number 1 High School. Fang Ping, Tan Hao, and Tan Tao chatted for a while before returning to class 4. As soon as he left, Tan Jinping sent away the leaders of Number 1 High School. After staring at Fang Ping's back for a while, Tan Jinping said softly, "Sun City has become more interesting these 2 years." Tan Hao asked curiously, "Dad, what are you talking about?" Tan Tao said thoughtfully, "Dad, are you talking about Fang Ping?" "Not just Fang Ping, but also that senior Wang of yours." Tan Jinping smiled but did not elaborate. A 19-year-old rank 3 martial artist who was known as Nanjiang Martial Arts University's pillar for the next few years. An 18-year-old normal senior high school student who was about to become an official martial artist. It was not unusual for these people to appear in big cities or martial arts families. However, both of them came from ordinary families born in a small city like Sun City. It had to be said that the probability was too low. Sun City's Wang Jinyang had already amazed some of the powerhouses in Nanjiang province. Then there was Fang Ping, of course. Fang Ping was still far from that. Entering the ranks of rank 1 martial artists did not mean anything. There was still a long way to go. From rank 1 to rank 3 could be achieved with time and resources. Beyond rank 3, however, it was not just a matter of resources and time. Wang Jinyang's amazement was not just because of his rank 3 ability. Of course, Tan Jinping did not know the specific details. He only knew that after Wang Jinyang broke through to rank 3, he became acquainted with some big shot. Tan Jinping thought about this and shook his head with a chuckle. No matter what happened to these people, it did not matter to him. No matter how amazing Wang Jinyang was, he would not take care of them just because they were from the same hometown. It was the same for Fang Ping. He turned to look at his 2 sons. They were his hope, the Tan family's hope. He lived frugally. He could have broken through to rank 2, but he refused to do so because he wanted to save resources for his sons. Tan Jinping was almost 50 years old and had lost his drive. Even if he could break through, he would not have much of a future. His 2 sons were different. They were still young. Thinking of this, Tan Jinping cast Fang Ping aside and chuckled. "Hao Tao, do your best this time. Once you get into a martial arts university, you'll be able to join the ranks of martial artists in no time." With the resources allocated by the school and his savings, his 2 sons' pole standing had reached the stable stance. Although their vitality was not high at the moment, Tan Jinping believed that once they entered martial arts university, his 2 sons would definitely become martial artists faster than Zhou Bin. "Fang Ping, what did Director Tan say to you just now?" As soon as Fang Ping arrived at class 4, Wu Zhihao asked in a low voice. "Chief?" Fang Ping asked doubtfully, "Uncle Tan, what bureau is the director of?" "The Ministry of Education is just a deputy director." "What?" Fang Ping was a little surprised. "I thought there weren't many martial artists in Sun City. Uncle Tan is just a—" In Fang Ping's opinion, Tan Jinping was still a martial artist. There were not many martial artists in Sun City. There were only 20 to 30 of them, and half of them were doing business. The remaining half might not all be in the hands of the government. In other words, no matter how bad Tan Jinping's life was, he was still in the top 10 of the Sun City officials. But such a person only became the deputy director of the Education Bureau? Of course, the officials did not just look at martial arts, but Tan Jinping's life was too bad. Wu Zhihao was even more surprised than he was. "What's wrong? Isn't the deputy director of the Education Bureau powerful?" The Ministry of Education is one of the 3 major authorities in Sun City. Although it can't compare to those in big cities, it's still not that bad, right? The Ministry of Education is one of the 3 major authorities in Sun City. It's already very impressive that Director Tan can become the Deputy Director of the Department of Investigation Services and the Ministry of Education. 3 major authorities. Fang Ping's worldview was ruined. How could the Ministry of Education be doing so well? Wu Zhihao saw that he was at a loss and had an expression that said, "You should pay more attention to the current politics. Although we're still high school students, we're about to enter university. There's no harm in knowing more about some things. Sun City is a county-level city without a military department, so the Ministry of Education is ranked third. Auspicious Sun City has a military department stationed there. So Auspicious Sun City has the government, the military department, the Department of Investigation Services, and the Ministry of Education. Of course, Auspicious Sun City's Ministry of Education is ranked lower because it doesn't have many resources and isn't strong enough. River City, on the other hand, is different. River City has a few martial arts universities in Nanjiang. The Ministry of Education has a lot of resources and is strong enough to rank higher than the Department of Investigation Services. Fang Ping's mouth fell open, but he could not speak for a long time. He had never paid attention to the system. He was mainly concerned about martial arts universities, martial sciences, and martial artists. As a high school student, there were not many people who really cared about it, and no one in class talked about it. That was why Fang Ping did not know that there was such a big difference in the system. From Fang Ping's perspective, the Ministry of Education was not an important department, even though it was not a low-level government office. Now, it had become the main authority. As for the Department of Investigation Services, he had heard Wang Jinyang mention it once. It was probably a law enforcement agency specifically set up to deal with martial artists. Fang Ping shook his head. Forget it. He had seen a humanoid RPG before. Why would he care about this difference? However, through Wu Zhihao's words, Fang Ping knew that Tan Jinping was doing quite well. The deputy of one of the three major authorities was not bad compared to the other party's rank. One strength. Wu Zhihao briefly explained these things, then brought up the original topic. Fang Ping answered perfunctorily, but could not help asking, "Why are you taking the school bus? I thought you were going to Auspicious Sun City alone." Wu Zhihao was speechless. Am I stupid? Going alone? Doesn't it cost money? Booking a hotel room? Doesn't it cost money to eat? Right now, I can't wait to spend a penny like it's 2 cents. What's the point of wasting money? Fang Ping had nothing to say to that. So you're this stingy too? No, why did you say to? I'm not stingy. As they chatted, the buses from other high schools arrived one after another. It was not like number 1 high school, which had 8 or 9 buses. In some high schools, all the martial science students in the school could not even fit one bus. Some high schools in the villages had already set off for Auspicious Sun City alone and gathered there. At 8:20, all the buses had gathered. There were more than 20 buses, and there were almost 900 people. Number 1 high school took up about 1/3 of the total. Once everyone had arrived, Tan Jinping spoke briefly with the people in charge of each school. Then he got into his small car and set off for Auspicious Sun City. The long line of cars left number 1 high school. At the entrance of number 1 high school, some of the teachers who stayed behind could not help but sigh. I wonder how many people will stay after the third. Someone shook his head. The physical assessment is the hardest. It'll be good if 100 people pass. 100 people? I don't think so. There are almost 20,000 senior 3 students in Sun City this year, and almost 1,500 of them applied for the martial sciences exams. If this were Capital City or Magic City, the ratio would be higher. But in Sun City, according to our previous estimates, the physical assessment score will be at least 110 calories this year. I'm afraid only 5% will be able to pass the physical assessment. However, the percentage of people who pass the physical assessment and get into martial arts universities is not low. Big cities are better. Some high schools apply for the martial sciences exams collectively. TSK, there's no comparison, the teachers discussed among themselves. Some even looked envious. Big cities are not livable, though. The housing prices are frighteningly expensive, and there are many requirements to settle down. These teachers from key high schools were considered elites in society, but they might not live as comfortably as they did in Sun City if they went to a big city. On the bus, Fang Ping and Wu Zhihao sat in the same row, while the rest of class sat in front and behind them. Apart from them, there were some students from other classes, most of them from the normal classes. The Tan brothers, however, mingled on the bus, sitting on Fang Ping's left. At first, because they were not from the same class, everyone talked about their own things. But after a while, under the lead of Zhang Hao and the others who were usually more active, everyone started chatting. Zhang Hao, who was sitting in the front row, said excitedly, "Our bus is amazing today." Tan Hao, Tan Tao, Wu Zhihao, Zhou Ming, Fang Ping. 5 of them have more than 115 calories vitality. Yang Jian, Lu Ruachi, Lan Pei, and a few others have more than 112 calories vitality. If this was last year, we could have 10 martial arts university students on each bus. Everyone was familiar with the others. Tan Hao and the others went without saying. Zhou Ming was also a seated player from class 3. Who the hell was Fang Ping? Some of them heard Tan Hao shout earlier, but not many of them knew who Fang Ping was. Hence, when Zhang Hao said this, someone beside him asked uncertainly, "Zhang Hao, Fang Ping is he from your class?" As he said this, the person turned around to look, but Fang Ping was leaning against a seat, so he did not see him. Zhang Hao knew what he meant immediately. Usually, everyone cared about their own things in the class, and there was no collective sense of honor. Now that there was someone from another class, Zhang Hao said loudly, "What? Do you think Wu Zhihao is the only good one in our class?" When Fang Ping went to pick up Senior Wang, Senior Wang said that Fang Ping would have no problem getting into a martial arts university. "If you don't believe me, ask Zhihao. Zhihao, is Fang Ping's vitality more than 115 calories?" Wu Zhihao looked at Fang Ping with a smile. Fang Ping did not bother to reply. He rolled his eyes and continued to look at the scenery. Seeing that he did not care, Wu Zhihao smiled and said, "It's more than 115 calories. Fang Ping is much better than me." When Wu Zhihao said this, the others on the bus could not help but look at Fang Ping. Tan Hao, who was beside him, said casually, "Fang Ping is a surefire candidate for martial arts university. Zhou Bin might be Sun City's top student this year." When he said this, even Zhou Ming and the other students with high vitality could not help but look. A competitor for Sun City's top student? They did not believe Zhang Hao's words. When Wu Zhihao said it, they believed 30% of it, but when Tan Hao said it, they believed 80% of it. For a moment, the bustling bus suddenly quieted down. Fang Ping was slightly helpless. He glanced at Tan Hao and the others. Were these guys trying to make trouble for him? But then again, it felt pretty good. The guy who asked the question earlier had obviously underestimated Fang Ping. How dare he question whether his vitality was at 115 calories? Was he looking down on Fang Ping? Fang Ping maintained his image as an expert, so he could not refute it. However, these people had helped him. It was a slap in the face. It felt pretty good. Fang Ping was proud of himself, but his face was calm. He even rolled his eyes at Wu Zhihao and the others. "What are you doing? Am I the kind of person who shows off? Seriously, do you know how to keep a low profile?" Chapter 52. 3 hours later. Auspicious Sun City, Peace District. Rising Sun Hotel. This hotel was the designated hotel for the year 3 martial science candidates in Sun City. Room 1608. Fang Ping put down his luggage and glanced at the 2 beds in the room. Then he began to consider a very serious problem. The school was very stingy and booked a room for 4 people. But there were only 2 beds. How were 4 people going to sleep? Among the 4 men, it was hard to say who would sleep with who and who would cross the line in the middle of the night. He glanced at the other 3 people in the room. Wu Zhihao, Zhang Hao, and Yang Jian. This burly fellow seemed to be a little dangerous. It would be hard for him to even resist in the middle of the night. As for the other 2, Fang Ping pondered for a moment before saying, Let me remind you, I have feet that stink. I like to snore when I sleep, kick off my blanket in the middle of the night and roll around. What a coincidence, me too. Wu Zhihao smiled happily. Zhang Hao swept a glance at the two of them and said sourly, "Two idiots." "All right, the two of you can sleep on the floor. Yang Jian and I will have a bed each." They looked at each other and couldn't help but laugh. Zhang Hao laughed for a while and then complained, "The school is so stingy. Can't they book more rooms?" Wu Zhihao went straight to the point. "I'm not being stingy. I've calculated that a lot of people will be leaving on the 3rd. When they leave, everyone who stays will have a room to themselves. I've asked everyone." F***CK. Zhang Hao cursed. It was too realistic. Fang Ping was not surprised. He smiled and said, "Let's squeeze for a few days. Just don't touch me at night. This time it's a real reminder. I've recently achieved a breakthrough in pole standing, and I'm now extremely lethal. You'll have to bear the consequences." Scram! The few of them cursed. Who would be interested in you? As for the lethality he mentioned, Wu Zhihao was deep in thought, but the other two didn't take it seriously. Yang Jian smirked. "Why don't we discuss it with Lu Ruoqi and the others, and see if we can swap rooms?" Fang Ping and the others looked at him in unison. "Sure, everyone thought that you were simple and honest, but it turns out that you're the one who's the coldest on the inside." Yang Jian hurriedly explained. "I mean, the girls' rooms might be a little bigger, and they'll be swapping rooms together. Hee hee." "An explanation is a cover-up. Who believes you?" Just as the three of them were teasing Yang Jian, someone knocked on the door. Yang Jian hurriedly went to open the door. Once the door was opened, the Tan brothers walked in. Tan Hao said as soon as he entered the room, "Big news! Just now, my dad was chatting with several team leaders from other counties and cities. Guess what I heard? The benchmark for the physical assessment this year might be 112 calories. As soon as Tan Hao finished speaking, Zhang Hao hurriedly said, "No way!" Although everyone had already guessed it, Zhang Hao had thought that 110 calories should be enough. Although his vitality had not reached 110 calories yet, he could still reach 110 calories if he ate a vitality pill tomorrow. In any case, he had to pass the physical assessment. This martial sciences exam was not a waste. If he couldn't even pass the physical examination, then this trip would have been a waste. "Really?" Tan Hao explained. "Everyone's vitality has increased a lot this year. Take our Sun City, for example. According to the statistics from the Department of Education alone, there are at least 100 people with vitality above 110 calories. On top of that, there's also Fang Ping who's taking pills." Fang Ping was speechless. "Don't pull me." Tan Hao chuckled. "All right, I won't talk about you. Anyway, including those who haven't been counted and those who broke through recently. In Sun City, there are probably 200 people with vitality above 110 calories. It's about the same in other places. I heard that auspicious Sun City has also exploded this year. According to the previous ratio, unless all martial arts universities recruit more students this year, 112 calories will definitely pass the physical assessment." Tan Hao's words did not affect the others much. Among them, Zhang Hao was the only one who could not pass. He was obviously disappointed. Although he said that he would study with the Crown Prince and that he did not mind being eliminated. However, when it came to this, he remembered that he could not even pass the physical assessment after all these years of hard work. Even if Zhang Hao acted like he did not care, he could not help but feel sad. 112 calories. Zhang Hao's smile was uglier than crying. "There's no hope for me to enter a martial arts university. I can't even stay for a few more days." "Zhang Hao, I'm fine." Zhang Hao forced a smile. "I've been prepared for this for a long time. However, I was thinking that after the cultural studies exam, I'll know if I've been eliminated or not. At least I'll have something to think about." "That's good too. I'll focus on the cultural studies and continue with the martial arts training after that. Tan Hao noticed that his words had made the atmosphere heavy. He said sheepishly, I heard it from my dad and the others. I don't know if it's accurate. Let's not talk about this. Oh, right. Why are your rooms a little small? Fang Ping, you're sharing a room with Wu Zhihao? What? I'm sharing a room with Tao, but it's a little bigger than yours. Tan Hao was about to change the topic, but he did not notice that Fang Ping and the others were glaring at him fiercely. The corner of Tan Tao's mouth twitched. He tugged at his boss's shirt. He felt a chilly wind blowing in the room. The guys opposite him seemed to be thinking of swallowing them whole. Tan Hao only realized it after Tao tugged at his shirt. Tan Hao said dryly, What's wrong? Fang Ping glared at him, exasperated. That's enough. If you don't have anything to say, then leave. If you stay, I can't guarantee your safety. What are you guys doing? You're not going to gang up on us, are you? When Tan Hao said this, Tan Tao was a little resentful. They wanted to gang up on you. Why did you have to add me in? Tan Hao was not stupid. He did not think too much earlier, but now he had figured it out. He eased the atmosphere and hurriedly said with a smile, I'll treat everyone to lunch. The hotel's free buffet is terrible. My treat. Let's eat out. This was his original intention, but he was a little too talkative. As soon as he entered the room, he hit the four of them hard. Fang Ping looked at Wu Zhihao, and Wu Zhihao looked at Zhang Hao. Just as he was about to refuse, Zhang Hao said fiercely, Let's eat. It'll be a waste if we don't eat. These two guys hit us as soon as they came. We have to teach them a lesson. Zhang Hao had calmed down, and the atmosphere was not as awkward. Everyone laughed and dragged the Tan brothers out the door. As for the Tan brothers sharing a room, Fang Ping did not think much of it. Their father was the leader of the team. Was it too much to give his sons a room to themselves? Not at all. Not at all. If Fang Ping was in his position, he would do the same. At most, he would pay for it himself. All the unwillingness and jealousy were unnecessary. This was how society should be. After eating outside and paying the bill, Tan Hao's pained expression made everyone feel even better. After the Tan brothers left, Zhang Hao suddenly said, Tan Hao and his brothers are actually not bad people. If it weren't for me today, they wouldn't have had to deliberately play a trick to ease the atmosphere. The Tan brothers later treated them to dinner, pretended to feel sorry for them, and even included the matter of the room. All of this was to ease the atmosphere. Perhaps they had not thought that the 112 calories problem would affect anyone. It was no wonder they had overlooked it. The brothers, Fang Ping, Wu Zhihao, and Yang Jian, all had vitality above 112 calories. They were all the same kind of people. Talking about entering the room was just an opening remark. In the end, it hurt Zhang Hao, seeing that Fang Ping and the others were on good terms with Zhang Hao, that led to the subsequent events. As he said that, Zhang Hao said, self-deprecatingly, Actually, I've thought it through. Society is just that unfair. If you can't become a martial artist, you have to be prepared to be a servant. Don't worry, this small matter won't break me. When I enter university, I'll think of a way to start earning money. With some support from my family, I'll enter a martial arts training class in 2 years. Maybe I'll become a martial artist earlier than you guys. Wu Zhihao laughed. Maybe that's true. I've heard people say that many of the fourth-year students in martial arts universities haven't become martial artists yet. If you become a martial artist before you graduate, you'll be even more awesome than the students in martial arts universities. Yang Jian, who was beside them, also laughed. Whether I get into a martial arts university or not, I won't give up on martial arts. It doesn't matter if I become a martial artist a little later. The few of them exchanged a few words. Fang Ping did not interrupt. However, Zhang Hao's performance made Fang Ping realize that the carp leaping over the dragon gate in the martial sciences examination was truly a carp leaping over the dragon gate. There was a hint of cruelty in this. It was fine today. When the physical assessment results and the standard line were announced on the 3rd, who knew how many students would lose their fighting spirit and confidence? Many people had been preparing for the martial sciences examination for many years. Some families went bankrupt just to provide for their children's martial sciences examination. Some families were even in debt, hoping that their children would become dragons one day and change their lives forever. However, in the next few days, who knew how many families' dreams would be shattered? Fang Ping could even imagine how many people would do irrational things out of desperation after the martial sciences examination ended every year. Martial sciences, Fang Ping murmured in his heart. The government treated martial artists too well. It was so well that even if these people were non-humans, he could not help but wonder why. Was it fair? Actually, it was not very fair. Even if a martial artist could do the work of 10 or 100 people, martial artists were still the minority. However, martial artists were the minority, and the majority of society was still ordinary people. This obvious difference in treatment and social status was still a little too much. In his mind, he could not help but think of what Wang Jinyang had said casually. In this world, you'll only get what you give. Nothing comes without a reason. They feel that it's unfair, but they don't know that the powerhouses think it's unfair too. Old Wang's unintentional words made Fang Ping fall into deep thought again. There was a deep meaning behind those words. Unfortunately, there were too few sources of information. Fang Ping had no idea at the moment. He stopped thinking about these things. Perhaps everything would become clear when he entered a martial arts university. Fang Ping had never thought that he was smarter than anyone else in the world. There was a reason why martial artists had their current social status. Those in power were not fools. Their considerations were much more far-sighted than his own. Out of position, out of power. The most important thing now was the physical assessment the next day. Fang Ping did not go out in the afternoon. The others kept quiet and did not train. They were all conserving their energy for the martial sciences examination the next day. Chapter 53. At night, Fang Ping did not cultivate the methods of honing since it was a 4-person dormitory. He took the opportunity to practice his stance. When it was time to rest, the few of them moved the 2 beds together and used them as bunk beds. It was rare to have such an experience. Other than Fang Ping, the others were all high school students and had not experienced university dormitory treatment. Fang Ping did not speak much that night, but the others chatted for a long time. One Esti of May, the atmosphere was especially tense when they woke up in the morning. Students walked to and fro outside their rooms. Some teachers knocked on their doors. Wake up and gather downstairs. Get your IDs and admission passes. Prepare the pills. Take them now. With a series of shouts, the students began to go downstairs. Fang Ping and the others had woken up long ago. They left their rooms without waiting for the teachers to knock. They could vaguely hear someone crying as soon as they stepped out. I'm sick. My vitality is dropping fast. Dad, Mom, I'm sorry. The crying came from afar. Some teachers had already gone over to comfort them. Falling sick before the physical assessment was the biggest blow to martial science candidates. When a person fell sick, their vitality would drop. They were already struggling to keep up with the standard. At this time, falling sick almost completely destroyed the candidates' hopes. This was crueler than missing the Gaokao. Martial science candidates spent too much. Some families were already struggling and could not afford to repeat their studies after a year's delay, so they could only give up. The others were distressed. Wu Zhihao sighed. Falling sick at this time. It's really, he did not know what to say. There was nothing he could do but sympathize. The gathering order was still being passed down. The few of them looked back, but the crying did not stop. At this time, they could not care less about the situation. They followed the others downstairs. Downstairs. As the students went downstairs, the teachers of the various high schools shouted with loudspeakers. High school students, line up here. High school number 2, come here. High School number 5, gather! Fong Ping and the others walked to the gathering point. After a while, the teacher in charge started taking attendance. During the roll call, there was one person missing. The teacher did not say anything, but someone in the crowd pitted him. Xiao Liang from class 8 didn't come. I heard he has a bad fever. The one crying just now was Xiao Liang? What a pity. His vitality is just 110 calories, so there's a lot of hope. That's right. This is great. There's no hope this year. There will be no chance in the future. Now the admission threshold is higher year by year, and Xiao Liang's family condition is not very good. The students discussed in low voices, and the teacher in charge shouted, "Silence! Students, the martial sciences exam has officially begun. Whether we go to a martial arts university or not is the first dividing line in our lives. But remember, this is not the last one. In the physical examination later, we will do our best. If we pass, it is worth celebrating. If you don't pass, don't give up. You are still young. There is still hope. There is still a future. If we can't get into a martial arts university, we can attend a training class. If we can't attend a training class, we can join the army. Even if that doesn't work, we still have other paths to take. The path of martial arts was not limited to martial arts universities. After graduation, we can join a large corporation. Work hard and perform well. The corporation can also train you to become a martial artist. The road ahead is long. The teachers began to give the students chicken soup for the soul. It might not be effective for adults, but for these young students it was still effective. A few minutes later, the teacher in charge stopped talking. Outside the hotel, Tan Jinping had appeared behind the crowd. Students, the location of the physical examination this time is Auspicious Sun City's first physical examination venue 300 meters away. Now, everyone line up and follow me. Tan Jinping did not use a loudspeaker, nor did he shout at the top of his lungs, but his voice still reached the ears of more than 1,000 students. This was the strength of a martial artist. A strong vitality burst forth from Tan Jinping's body. Even if the others were not as sensitive as Fong Ping, they could still feel the strength of the person who had shouted. The crowd was walking toward the first physical examination venue. The Tan brothers suddenly appeared in front of Fong Ping. Without saying a word, they pulled Fong Ping forward. Fong Ping was speechless. He said gloomily, "What are you guys doing?" "I have something to tell you." Tan Hao had already pulled Fong Ping to the front while he spoke. At this moment, Tan Jinping had stopped in front of the crowd and was standing at the side. There were a few students beside Tan Jinping. Although Fong Ping was not familiar with Zhou Bin and Chen Jie from No. 1 High School, he was familiar with them. There were two other people, a boy and a girl. They were probably from other schools because Fong Ping was not familiar with them. By the time Fong Ping arrived, Tan Jinping had finished talking to the others. Zhou Bin and the others glanced at Fong Ping, who had been pulled over by the Tan brothers. They nodded and joined the group of students without a word. After they left, only the Tan brothers and Fong Ping were left beside Tan Jinping. Tan Jinping glanced at Fong Ping and smiled. "Fong Ping, your vitality should be above 130 calories, right? F*CK. The one who said this was Tan Hao. Although he knew that Fong Ping's vitality was not low, his father did not say that Fong Ping's vitality was above 130 calories yesterday. Fong Ping did not deny it. He nodded. Tan Jinping saw this and smiled again. "That's good. There's something I'd like to discuss with you, Fong Ping." "Go ahead, Uncle Tan." Auspicious Sun City has a total of 5 counties, 3 districts, and 1 city. As a county-level city, Sun City is also one of the best among the administrative organizations under Auspicious Sun City's jurisdiction. However, Sun City is only slightly better than the 5 counties. It's not as good as a few districts in Auspicious Sun City. Every year, how many students pass the martial sciences exam and how many students pass the exam? The education exam is the most important, and it's also a hard target. Tan Jinping gave a brief introduction. In summary, there was a lot of competition within auspicious Sun City. The education exam targets of various places were the main focus. The brand of YC county-level city was coveted by many people. If it was suppressed for a few years, especially by the 5 counties, it was hard to say if it would be replaced in the future. Of course, these struggles had little to do with Fangping. Tan Jinping only had one reason for looking for Fangping. For the physical assessment this time, Rising Creek County and Serenity District were assigned to the same checkpoint. Rising Creek County is the strongest among the 5 counties in terms of economy and education. This is especially true for Serenity District because auspicious Sun City No. 1 High School is within the boundaries of Serenity District and is under the jurisdiction of Serenity District. This time selection wasn't too good. Seeing Fangping's confusion, Tan Jinping shook his head and said, "You might know that emotions have a huge impact on a student's vitality. If you're surrounded by people who are weaker than you, then you'll be full of confidence and the results might be beyond your expectations. But if you're surrounded by people who are stronger than you, then your confidence will take a hit and you'll be nervous. Under these circumstances, you won't be able to perform as well as you should." This was the same logic as what Wang Jinyang had said about emotional outbursts. Fangping understood and nodded. Both auspicious Sun City No. 1 High School and Rising Creek No. 1 High School have good seedlings, and both of them don't treat Sun City very well. They've been eyeing Sun City's higher administrative rank for many years. A prefecture-level city can't have 2 county-level cities, at least not for auspicious Sun City. That's why I hope that you can unleash your full vitality before the assessment and overwhelm the students from this county and district. I've already instructed Zhou Bin and the others, but their vitality isn't that high after all. Even if they unleash their vitality, the effect will be limited. You're different. If you unleash your vitality, people will sense it. Fangping understood Tan Jinping's words. However, Fangping frowned slightly. Unleashing his vitality and suppressing the other students would make them nervous and disappointed. To be honest, this was not the right thing to do. As if reading Fangping's mind, Tan Jinping smiled faintly and said, "A martial artist must have the courage to fight. Sympathizing with your opponents and the weak is not a martial artist style. Moreover, the strong will always be strong. If they're affected by your vitality outburst and can't unleash their full potential, there's no hope for them in the martial sciences in the first place. Do you think that people like Wu Zhihao and Tan Hao won't be able to unleash their full potential because of your influence? If that's the case, just find a random martial artist to unleash his vitality, and the students won't even need to take the assessment. Doing this is just to boost the confidence of the students from Sun City. After all, to many people, the students from auspicious Sun City are very strong. If they form this kind of thinking, they'll be affected later." Fangping was slightly conflicted. Tan Jinping said with some disappointment, "Cowering in fear and not fighting when you can. Fangping, it's not that I'm trying to goad you. Once you form this kind of style, being cautious and overcautious, it'll be very difficult for you to walk the path of martial arts in the future. You, the young you, need to show your ability and strength, not hide it. What are you worried about? Are you worried that you'll expose your strength, or are you worried that people will be unhappy?" Tan Jinping shook his head and said, "That's where you're wrong. The more useful a person is, the more they'll be valued. It's no secret that you're related to Nanjiang Martial Arts University's Wang Jinyang. So you don't have to worry at all." Fangping laughed dryly. He really did not have any worries. Old Wang had already said that he would take the blame. He hesitated, partly because he felt that it was not right, and partly because of something else. After some thought, Fangping said slightly awkwardly, "Uncle Tan, I'm not worried about that. I was thinking that unleashing my vitality before the assessment will deplete my vitality." When it's time for the assessment, then Tan Jinping was stunned for a moment. Then he laughed and said, "Right, I forgot about that. Don't worry, the city will compensate you. After your vitality unleashes, I'll compensate you with a vitality pill. This isn't from me alone, it's from Sun City. A vitality pill." When Tan Hao heard this, he said pitifully, "Dad, didn't you say blood and cheer-replenishing pills?" Tan Jinping glanced at him. "Silly son. Zhou Bin and the others got cheer-replenishing pills as compensation. You two brats, I gave you blood and cheer-replenishing pills out of selfishness." Was Fang Ping the same? His vitality was strong, and he was about to become a martial artist. His relationship with Wang Jinyang alone was enough to compensate him with a vitality pill. If he could surpass Serenity District and Rising Stream County, they would have fewer people passing the assessment this year. If Sun City had a few more, it would be their biggest success. They did not need to be too strong. It was fine as long as others were weaker than them. It was hard to compare who was stronger, but everyone knew how to compare who was worse. With resources like Fang Ping's, why not use them? If Sun City performed well, they could go back and apply for it. Then it would not just be 4 cheer-replenishing pills, 2 blood and cheer-replenishing pills, and 1 vitality pill. It was not impossible to make it 7 vitality pills with some slight modifications. Of course, the prerequisite was that their results were better than the other 2. Although Fang Ping did not know what Tan Jinping was planning, it had nothing to do with him, and he did not care. When he heard that he would be compensated with a vitality pill, he remembered that his wealth had been depleted recently and that his cash was running low. Fang Ping's worries were gone. He nodded and said, "Okay, Uncle Tan, I'll try my best later." Tan Jinping smiled and said, "This is how a martial artist should act." "Fang Ping, Uncle Tan is old, but you're still young. Everyone is different. Young people should be full of fighting spirit. If not me, then who else? When you enter a martial arts university, you'll realize that keeping a low profile will only make you fall behind. Only fight. Fight, dare to fight, and can fight. It doesn't matter if you lose. You can only go further if you win. I'm just afraid that you won't dare to fight." The last few sentences touched Fang Ping's heart. Tan Jinping was not the only one who said that. The books and Wang Jinyang had said it. Reality told Fang Ping that he had to fight. Chapter 54. Auspicious Sun No. 1 Physical Examination Center. Outside the building, the 3 student teams were clearly separated. The physical examination center was very large. Thousands of people had gathered in the square outside the building, but it still didn't seem crowded. It was not time for the official physical examination yet, so the students were not allowed to enter. At this moment, the square was filled with whispers. "Are they from Auspicious Sun No. 1 Middle School?" "It's them. I didn't expect to have a physical examination with them. The students from Auspicious Sun No. 1 High School have very high vitalities. I heard that those with vitalities lower than 110 calories don't even register." "No way! Hundreds of people are all above 110 calories? It's over. We're really going to be a bystander this time." Among the 3 teams, the student team from the Serenity District was a little special. 400 to 500 of them were wearing school uniforms. Unlike them, Fang Ping and the others dressed casually. The school did not have any strict requirements. As for the students of Auspicious Sun No. 1 Middle School, they all wore the same school uniform. At first glance, the students of Sun City and Rising Stream County looked like a ragtag army. The students of Auspicious Sun No. 1 High School all appeared rather aloof and arrogant. The students were not too shrewd, and many things were displayed on their faces. As the best high school in Auspicious Sun City, the high school with the highest number of students entering martial arts universities in Auspicious Sun City every year, the students of Auspicious Sun City No. 1 High School had the right to be proud. Just like Sun City No. 1 High School, the students from Sun City No. 1 High School would feel superior when facing students from other high schools. Even if I'm bad, it doesn't matter. My school is better than yours. I'm from number 1 middle school. This is what I have to be proud of. Of course, no one would say it out loud. You had to comprehend it. If you really wanted to praise him, he would even say modestly, "Actually, number 1 middle school is just SO. Your XX middle school is also not bad. It's pretty good." At this time, you must not take it seriously. You must continue to flatter him. If you don't continue to flatter them, they will think in their hearts, "This trash really thinks that their school is very powerful. Isn't it embarrassing to compare with our number 1 middle school?" The students all had the same mentality, and this mentality was actually very easy to see. While the people in the square whispered among themselves, the students of Auspicious Sun First High School tried their best to maintain their aloofness and arrogance. While the others were discussing it, the people from Auspicious Sun Number 1 High School were very quiet. They were all maintaining their cold and aloof image. In reality, Fong Ping could clearly see that many of the students from Auspicious Sun Number 1 High School could barely contain the joy in their eyes. A bunch of inexperienced brats. Competing with them makes me feel like I'm bullying little kids, Fong Ping muttered to himself. He could not bring himself to bully them. However, this was only Fong Ping's one-sided thinking. Zhou Bin and the others beside him had long been itching to have a go, ready to fight. They weren't the only ones. The students from Serenity District and Rising Stream County were also eager to show off their abilities. Obviously, Tan Jinping was not the only one who had such thoughts. The other party's leader also had the same thoughts. Or rather, it was an annual tradition. In front of the team, Tan Jinping and the leaders from Serenity and Rising Stream were all smiles as they chatted, as if they were old friends reuniting to celebrate. However, if one looked closely, they would notice that their smiles were somewhat hypocritical. After some hypocritical greetings, Tan Jinping turned his head and smiled. "Zhou Bin, you guys should get to know the students from Serenity and Rising Stream. When we go to martial arts universities in the future, we'll all be from Auspicious Sun City, so we'll all take care of each other." The two warriors from Serenity and Rising Stream also said the same thing. The students who had been instructed in advance also walked out from the team. 7 people walked out from Sun City side, 5 from Rising Creek side, and more than 10 from Peaceful District. There was a standard for selecting these students, and 120 calories was the dividing line. These people were all students, and they hesitated for a moment. They did not know if they should go up and say a few polite words before starting, or roll up their sleeves and start right away. They did not really know how to say polite words. If they rolled up their sleeves and started right away, it would seem a little reckless. Tan Jinping and the others did not give them any pointers either. They all wore smiles on their faces as they watched the performance of these outstanding students. Most of the time, watching these inexperienced students show off and provoke them was a rare, relaxing experience. Years later, if there were some great figures among them, it would be something to brag about in their old age. The few martial artists were chatting in low voices, their smiles much more sincere than before. Fong Ping glanced at Tan Jinping and the others, then at the students who had just started interacting with them, and then at the thousands of students in the plaza. This scene made Fong Ping feel like everyone was watching a monkey show. Of course, the students might not think so. They looked at the people in front of them with envy, admiration, and jealousy. As celebrities of their respective schools, everyone knew what it meant when these people walked out. It meant that they were the cream of the crop. However, Fong Ping was sure that Tan Jinping and the other martial artists were just watching a monkey show. For example, when he saw a few elementary school students baring their fangs and brandishing their claws on the road, he would also laugh and watch the show. Anyway, they would not really fight. It was quite fun to watch the kids fight with their eyes wide open. At this time, Fong Ping thought about Tan Jinping's words again, asking them to use vitality outbursts to overwhelm their opponents and destroy their confidence. Was this reliable? Even if aspiring martial artist had a vitality outburst, A student with around 120 calories would only look slightly stronger. As for the so-called aura and pressure, there was no such thing. If it was above 130 calories, it would cause slight pressure to the people nearby. However, it was hard to say how strong the effect would be, and the area of effect was also limited. Now that he thought about it and looked at Tan Jinping and the others' expressions, this could not be a method used by the leaders to have fun every year, could it? It might not be purely for fun, but could it be a method of investment? After all, it was just a vitality outburst, and they were compensated with pills. No matter how he looked at it, it was not a loss. After receiving the pills, they could not help but thank them in their hearts. As Fang Ping thought about this, he looked at the outstanding students who were still trying to interact with them. These fellows, in the future, when you become successful, I wonder if you'll feel ashamed when you think back on today's scene. Fang Ping did not know if they would. However, looking at these people who did not know how to turn against him, Fang Ping felt quite ashamed. If it were not for the vitality pills, Fang Ping would have turned around and left. After some thought, it was better to get the pain over with than to prolong it. If they continued talking like this, it would be even more embarrassing if they turned against each other later. With that in mind, Fang Ping did not delay any further. He took a step forward. The others were still introducing themselves when Fang Ping suddenly said, "Students, let's get straight to the point." Everyone was slightly stunned. Before they could react, Fang Ping suddenly gathered his vitality and used a small trick from the methods of honing, instantly releasing his vitality outburst. A vitality of more than 140 calories and a mentality of more than 170 hertz were all released. In the next moment, the outstanding students who were introducing themselves felt as if their necks were being strangled. The faces of those who were close to Fang Ping were flushed, and their eyes were still a little dazed. What's going on? Fighting just because of a disagreement? I can't breathe. These students were caught off guard. Other than the two students from Auspicious Sun No. 1 high school, whose vitality was more than 130 calories, the others felt a strong sense of oppression. Not far away, the two martial artists who had been chatting happily with Tan Jinping also felt as if their necks were being strangled. What was going on? The martial artist in charge of Serenity District's team looked confused. Then he stared at Fang Ping, then turned to glare at Tan Jinping and said through gritted teeth, "You guys went to River City No. 1 high school to poach people." The team leader from Rising Creek County had only just reacted. He scolded in a low voice, "Old Tan, don't be so shameless. It's just a little entertainment. Does Sun City have to do this? This outburst is almost as good as a martial artist's. Vitality is at least 145 calories. Old Tan, is it worth it? How much did you spend?" The two leaders looked unfriendly as they stared at Tan Jinping fiercely. Before Tan Jinping could explain, the leader from Serenity District said hurriedly, "Student, the physical assessment is coming up. If you outburst now, it will affect your performance in the assessment." The martial artist from Rising Creek County stepped forward and said with a smile, "Student, outburst after you enter the vitality chamber. Don't waste time." The two of them had no choice but to take this seriously. Fang Ping's vitality outburst was mixed with mentality pressure. The few students whose vitality had barely reached 120 calories were about to suffocate and roll their eyes. If this went on, their performance in the assessment would definitely be affected. Their vitality that could reach 120 calories initially would drop by 1 calorie or 2 calories later. They had not expected that there would be a potential martial artist in Sun City. Normally, even if these students outburst, the effect on students whose vitality was not that different from theirs would be limited. Fang Ping's vitality was strong, close to rank 1. That was why the two martial artists were more polite when they spoke. They did not know which famous high school Sun City had poached this student from. It was only then that Tan Jinping realized. He knew that Fang Ping's vitality was not weak, but before Fang Ping's outburst, he could not sense it clearly. Now that he saw Fong Ping's vitality surging and condensing, it was obvious that he was very close to rank 1. Other than that, there seemed to be other effects. The outburst of a potential rank 1 should not have caused the faces of the people around him to turn pale. At this time, Tan Jinping did not have time to think. If he let Fong Ping continue, things would get out of hand. The 2 people from Serenity and Rising Creek went over. Tan Jinping also hurried forward and said loudly, "Fong Ping, it's done!" As Tan Jinping spoke, Fong Ping restrained his vitality. He turned his head and glanced at the 3 people who were hurrying toward him. He was secretly happy. Weren't they enjoying the show just now? Were they panicking now? That was what he thought, but Fong Ping's face was blank. His expression seemed to say, "Why aren't we continuing?" The leaders' faces stiffened. They were still continuing. If they continued, there would be at least 5 of the top students whose vitality would fall below 120 calories. One had to know that 120 calories was also a watershed in the educational assessment indicators. They were not the only districts in auspicious Sun City. If things got ugly in the end, all of them would suffer. Tan Jinping had already walked over. He first glanced at the panting Zhou Bin and the others. Seeing that they were fine except for their pale faces, he breathed a sigh of relief. Then he could not help but look at Fong Ping with a frighteningly complicated expression. Mother asterisk her. You started fighting without saying a word. You didn't follow the script. If you had done it step by step and everyone was prepared, this situation might not have happened. Aren't you ashamed to fight your own people? Also, how did this guy's vitality reach such a high level? It's not above 130 calories. It's clearly close to rank 1. How did that guy Wang Jinyang raise this kid? He's cultivated the methods of honing. His pole standing is at least in a stable stance. Otherwise, his vitality wouldn't be this high. His vitality is condensed and his outburst is swift. This means that even if he took the pills, he would have digested them completely. It didn't cause his vitality to stagnate. A true potential martial artist can be ready to break through at any time. Although Tan Jinping was only peak rank 1, he was almost 50 years old and had been stuck at rank 1 for many years. He instantly made a judgment in his heart. Chapter 55. Following Fong Ping's outburst, the yearly tradition was broken. A few martial artists who wanted to watch the show and amuse themselves saw the shock and fear on the faces of the elite students from the various academies, and they could not say anything about it. Although the 2 top students from auspicious Sun No. 1 High School, with vitalities of 130 calories and above, were not under much pressure, they were still a little distracted. In this state, the test results might not be satisfactory. Even Zhou Bin and Qinjie from Sun City No. 1 High School were speechless. They didn't know if they were disappointed or if they were still in a daze. Fong Ping's sudden outburst just now had affected the few of them who were right beside Fong Ping. They were no less affected than anyone else. Tan Jinping felt that he had done something stupid. He did not know how it would affect the other regions. However, people like Zhou Bin and Qinjie were Sun City's martial arts university seeds. If he was defeated by Fong Ping, it would be troublesome if he made a mistake later. Tan Jinping was speechless when he thought about how Fong Ping would trick even his own people. The kid looked honest, but in reality he might not be. After all, Fong Ping was not a martial artist. The range of his outburst was limited. The students in the queue did not know what had happened. However, they could still see the changes in the expressions of the outstanding students from the various schools. Outside the arena, whispers could be heard again. What happened to Zhou Bin and the others? Lu Yang's face is pale. Is he sick? What happened just now? Why didn't anyone make a sound? In the crowd, Wu Zhihao touched his chin. He had also seen the scene just now. Could it be Fong Ping's doing? Wu Zhihao guessed in his heart, but he wasn't too sure. After all, a top student from auspicious Sun No. 1 High School was there just now. Listening to the students' whispers, then looking at the innocent Fang Ping. Tan Jinping felt a headache coming on. He said, "Everyone get back in line and prepare for the physical examination." After the others left absent-mindedly, Tan Jinping saw that Fang Ping was about to slip away as well. He said, "Fang Ping, wait." Fang Ping stopped in his tracks. He turned around and laughed dryly. "Uncle Tan." Tan Jinping looked at him deeply for a while and said after a while, "You did very well. It's just a little too good." Tan Jinping added in his heart, "Do you want the vitality pill now or now?" Fang Ping's eyes lit up as he hurriedly added, "If you don't accept it now, what if you go back on your word?" Tan Jinping did not mind. He took out a small medicine bottle from his pocket and tossed it to Fang Ping. Tan Jinping could not help but rub his temples when he saw that Fang Ping seemed to have the intention of opening it for inspection. "Why would I lie to you about this?" Fortunately, Fang Ping did not open the bottle in the end. He stuffed it into his pocket. In reality, Fang Ping did not need to open it to know whether it was real or fake. If there was really a situation where his wealth did not increase, Fang Ping was afraid that he would immediately go to Tan Jinping for an explanation. Now that he had obtained the vitality pill, everything that had happened before had come to an end. Tan Jinping wanted to say a few more words, but in the end he didn't. He waved his hand and said, "Let's talk after the physical examination." Fang Ping nodded, turned around and returned to the queue. After he left, the two leaders of Serenity and Rising Stream walked over and stared at Tan Jinping with unfriendly eyes. Tan Jinping felt a headache coming on. He said helplessly, "Don't look at me. I didn't know his vitality was so high. Also, he's involved with that person from Nanjiang Martial Arts University." "Who?" the two of them said subconsciously. Then the leading warrior from Serenity raised his eyebrows and said, "Wang Jinyang." Yes. All right, there was no need to say anything else. Wang Jinyang, that monster, had just won the position of vice president of Nanjiang Martial Arts University's Martial Arts Society a few days ago. This news had already spread in the martial arts circle. Nanjiang Martial Arts University's Martial Arts Society was different from the student council of a normal university. No matter how much power the student council had, it was still controlled by the school. However, in a professional martial arts university like Nanjiang Martial Arts University, the Martial Arts Society had a lot of power. The school's management and the Martial Arts Society's power was split almost 370. This included the allocation of resources, the management of the school's industry. The Martial Arts Society was involved in all of this. Everyone could see that Wang Jinyang had won the position of vice president of the Martial Arts Society. Once Wang Jinyang took control of the Martial Arts Society, the benefits he would reap in the next 3 years and the level he would achieve after graduation were almost predictable. Wang Jinyang, who had achieved rank 3 in a year, was not someone they could afford to offend. Since the other party was involved with Wang Jinyang, even if his performance was beyond their expectations, there was no need to question him. However, when they thought about Fang Ping's vitality outburst and how he had suppressed almost all of Auspicious Sun City's potential martial artists, the Serenity martial artist said enviously, "Rank 1 is just around the corner. Once he enters a martial arts university, he'll definitely achieve a breakthrough in less than 3 months. There aren't many martial artist candidates in Nanjiang every year. Just based on vitality alone, I'm afraid he'll be in the top 10 in Nanjiang." In Nanjiang province, Auspicious Sun City was not the best, but it was not too far behind either. It was average. The provincial capital, River City, had martial artist candidates almost every year. Sometimes other big cities would show up as well. When there were fewer, there would be 2 or 3 martial artists in the whole province. When there were more, there would be 7 or 8. Now he was getting stronger every year. Based on his previous standards, it would not be too difficult for him to rank in the top 10. As he said that, the leader of Serenity asked, "How's his cultural studies?" Tan Jinping thought for a while before saying, "It's not bad. If he passes the key points, The big two probably won't reject him. Are you sure he'll enter the big two? The Serenity martial artist raised his eyebrows. Entering Nanjiang Martial Arts University, waiting for Wang Jinyang to leave, and taking over the Martial Arts Society might not be impossible. That's hard to say. Forget it. We don't have to worry about these things. Tan Jinping thought about it for a while, but he did not continue thinking about it. This might have something to do with Wang Jinyang's plans. It was not something a rank, one martial artist like him should worry about. If Nanjiang Martial Arts University's Martial Arts Society president was from Sun City for 2 consecutive terms, Sun City would benefit as well. Whether Fang Ping went to Nanjiang Martial Arts University or entered the Big Two, this matter was beyond their control. At this moment, the 3 of them had a vague suspicion that Fang Ping was Wang Jinyang's preparation for what was to come. As for why he did not choose from the martial arts universities, it was very simple. Wang Jinyang was only a freshman now. No matter who he supported, they would not be able to take over Nanjiang Martial Arts University. Wang Jinyang had just finished a meeting when he suddenly sneezed, attracting many people's attention. Old Wang was a rank 3 martial artist. Had he caught a cold? Wang Jinyang could not help but rub his nose. His gaze swept across the former Martial Arts Society vice president who was following behind him. Was this guy cursing him in his heart? A martial artist's senses were very sharp. To provoke him into sneezing, there must be some malicious intent behind it. With a smile on his face, old Wang glanced meaningfully at the senior he had chased off the stage. Was he trying to make a comeback? The young man who Wang Jinyang's gaze swept across had an ugly expression on his face. Mother ****, isn't it enough to take away my position as vice president? Are you trying to kill me? The young man swore in his heart. When I'm done honing my torso, I'll get my revenge sooner or later. For a moment, the atmosphere at the entrance of the Martial Arts Society was cold. Fang Ping, who had returned to the queue, did not know about what had happened at Nanjiang Martial Arts University. Ignoring the complicated looks from Zhou Bin and the others, Fang Ping began to focus on his stats panel. Wealth, 227,000 vitality, 147 calories, 149 calories. Mentality, 170 hertz, 172 hertz. Fang Ping had been cultivating without restraint for the past few days, which had depleted his wealth quickly. He was only left with 2 million. He had just obtained a vitality pill, which increased his wealth by 70,000. This time was different from the last time. Last time, he had obtained too many pills. Fang Ping did not know how the system had calculated them, nor did he know how much each pill was worth. Now that he had obtained a vitality pill alone, Fang Ping understood that the system had estimated the vitality pill's value to be 70,000. Should I become a middleman in the future? Fang Ping muttered to himself. The system had estimated the normal vitality pill's value to be 70,000. According to the system's nature, it meant that there were ways to obtain vitality pills for 70,000. If vitality pills were sold to people without channels, they would usually be sold for 100,000. If he could resell them, he could get a vitality pill for 70,000 and then sell it. Not only could he make money, but he could also earn a lot of wealth. However, this was just a thought. First of all, he did not have such channels. Even if he did, it would be illegal to resell pills in bulk. Ordinary people could only buy pills from pharmacies. Even if Fang Ping had a lot of pills, it would be fine if he sold them in small quantities without attracting attention. If he resold them in bulk, the Department of Investigation Services would treat him to tea the next day if nothing went wrong. However, Fang Ping took this matter to heart. If he had the chance, he would give it a try. Shifting his attention away from his wealth, Fang Ping took a look at his vitality and mentality. The outburst just now did not consume too much. 2 calories vitality and 2 hertz mentality. After spending 4,000 wealth to replenish what he had consumed, the corners of Fang Ping's mouth curled up slightly. The business this time was not a loss. Not only did he earn a vitality pill, but he also earned 66,000 wealth, which at least made up for the large amount of wealth he had spent recently. Also, his vitality was now stuck at 149 calories. He did not know how many times he needed to cultivate before he could break through to 150 calories. Just as Fong Ping was calculating his gains and losses, the doors of the Physical Assessment Center officially opened. The physical assessment began. The students lined up and prepared to enter. At this moment, a group of men in police uniforms appeared out of nowhere and guarded the two sides of the Physical Assessment Center. Fong Ping glanced at them and heard Tan Hao beside him mumble, "Stop looking." They're from the Department of Investigation Services. Department of Investigation Services? It's okay. They're here to prevent people from taking the exam and causing trouble. In the past, there were martial artists who pretended to be students and took the exam. Fong Ping understood. As expected, when he entered, the other party checked the admission tickets, one by one, and verified them. There were not many people from the Department of Investigation Services. There were only 4 of them. Fong Ping also sensed that 2 of them had vitality lower than his. It seemed that the Department of Investigation Services was not entirely made up of martial artists. This was inevitable. After all, even a city like Sun City had its own Department of Investigation Services. If they were all martial artists, then all the martial artists in Sun City would not be enough. Even if Auspicious Sun City was much stronger than Sun City, not all of them were martial artists. When it was Fong Ping's turn, a martial artist from the Department of Investigation Services, whose vitality was no weaker than Tan Jinping's, sized Fong Ping up carefully. In the end, he did not say anything and allowed Fong Ping to enter the Physical Assessment Center. The moment he stepped into the Physical Assessment Center, Fong Ping let out a long breath. Chapter 56. At the same time as they entered the Physical Assessment Center, in the control room of the Physical Assessment Center. At this moment, 7 or 8 people were gathered in the control room, half sitting and half standing. Among them were members of the Ministry of Education's inspection team, Nanjiang's inspection team, and Auspicious Sun's official representative. Seeing the students enter, the deputy leader of Nanjiang's inspection team, an old man in his 60s with black hair, tilted his head and said, "Director Jean, there are no martial artist candidates in Auspicious Sun this year, right?" Jean Kemming, the director of Auspicious Sun's Department of Education, who was standing beside the old man, was sweating profusely. He said carefully, "Director Luo, there are no martial artist candidates in Auspicious Sun this year. Including this year, if I remember correctly, it's been 10 years. For a whole 10 years, there hasn't been a martial artist candidate in Auspicious Sun," the old man called Luo Ting said indifferently. Before Jean Kemming could continue, the old man sneered. 10 years ago, during such a difficult time, there were still martial artist candidates in the martial sciences exam. I didn't expect that in the past 10 years life would get better and the education environment would improve. But Auspicious Sun hasn't had a martial artist candidate in 10 years. Who knows where the annual funding for education is spent, Director Luo? Jean Kemming's forehead was sweating even more. The old man did not look at him. He glanced sideways at the 2 members of the inspection team. Seeing that they were staring at the monitor as if they did not hear what he said, a smile appeared on his gloomy face. Ignoring the presence of the 2, the old man continued, "This year the inspection team in the province has a much higher standard than before. Director Chin personally led a team to inspect River City. Deputy Director Liu and I each led a team to inspect each city. Do you know why?" Jean Kemming licked his dry lips and said softly, "Governor General Zhang broke through to rank 7 Grandmaster, intending to sweep away the declining trend of martial arts in Nanjiang, so you knew." The old man said lightly, "I thought you didn't know." Jean Kemming did not dare to continue, but the old man did not mind. He continued, "Nanjiang has 15 prefecture-level cities under its jurisdiction. Auspicious Sun is not the best, but it's not the worst either. However, Auspicious Son's martial arts education has been in the bottom 3 for many years. Every year, Auspicious Son wants to reform and restructure. You, Jean Kemming, patted your chest loudly. Last year, you went to report in the province with even greater enthusiasm. This year, you promised to get rid of Auspicious Son's worst ranking. But now, for 10 consecutive years, there had been no martial artist candidates. Not to mention martial artist candidates, not even a peak-level prospective martial artist had appeared. If it wasn't for... The old man's gaze became much colder. He huffed softly. If it weren't for Auspicious Son's Wang Jinyang's outstanding performance at Nanjiang Martial Arts University last year, Auspicious Son's Department of Education would have been completely abolished. More sweat appeared on Jean Kemming's forehead, but he heaved a sigh of relief. He was also thankful that there was still Wang Jinyang to protect Auspicious Sun City's reputation. It was a pity that Wang Jinyang's performance in the martial science exam was average. If he had become a martial artist in the martial science exam last year, Auspicious Son would not have to face so much pressure. Just as Jean Kemming was about to heave a sigh of relief, the old man suddenly said, "Although Auspicious Sun City's Department of Education didn't make a big move because of Wang Jinyang, Governor General Zhang personally went to the Department of Education before we left and made it clear that meritorious service will be rewarded and mistakes will be punished." The martial arts education in Auspicious Sun City had many drawbacks. There were no professional martial arts training classes in the high schools of the lower counties and cities. The subsidy plan for outstanding students is only in name, but has never been implemented. The old man asked many questions in a row, causing Jean Kemming's face to turn pale. When he was done, the old man said slowly, "Don't blame the province for not giving you a chance. This time, I came over to talk to you peacefully, instead of arresting you on the spot for dereliction of duty. This means that you still have a chance. And this chance lies in the physical assessment results this time. This year, if there are more than 100 students with vitality above 120 calories in Auspicious Sun City, the province will give you time to reform and reform. Or if there are peak aspiring martial artists or martial artist candidates, you will also have a chance to correct. If there are none of them and you fail to meet the standards," the old man said slowly, "then Director Jean, you will be going to the catacombs next." The catacombs! Jean Kemming could not hold it in any more. Sweat dripped from his forehead. The 2 members of the inspection team who had pretended not to hear their conversation earlier could not help but turn their heads to look. Especially when they looked at Jean Kemming. There was a hint of pity in their eyes. This fellow had been overseeing the Auspicious Sun City Department of Education for 5 years. In Auspicious Sun City, he was also one of the top 5 big shots. However, if someone like him who was used to enjoying life were really sent to the catacombs, would he survive? Although this fellow was already a rank 3. The old man said mildly, "Enjoyment and sacrifice are equal. The same goes for rights and obligations. No one is an exception. If you, Jean Kemming, can cultivate a large number of martial artist seedlings, you will also be contributing to the country. Then you can naturally enjoy everything you deserve in Auspicious Sun City. However, you are in a high position. All you do is enjoy and don't know how to contribute. You don't even understand the principle of everyone performing their own duties. It's not easy for the country to cultivate you to rank 3. Naturally, you will have to pay the price you deserve." Deputy Luo, Jean Kemming's face was frighteningly pale. His legs were even trembling slightly as he said, "Deputy Luo, please give me another year. I promise that next year, Auspicious Sun City will not be like this." The situation this year had already been set. More than 100 students with vitality above 120 calories? Was it difficult? It could be said that it was difficult, but it was not too difficult either. For big cities, it was really not difficult to have 100 students with vitality above 120 calories. Some famous high schools could achieve this in just one high school. However, for Auspicious Sun City, it was really difficult. The first physical assessment point had already gathered Auspicious Sun number 1 High School, Rising Stream number 1 High School, Sun City number 1 High School. These were the top high schools in Auspicious Sun City. Even so, there were less than 30 students with vitality above 120 calories. This time, there were a total of 3 physical assessment points. The other 2 places were much worse than here. There would not be too many students with vitality above 120 calories. In total, there would be 60 to 70 people at most. Although the old man said he would give him a chance, in reality, Jean Kemming knew that there was no chance at all. When he thought of sending a civilian martial artist who had not used martial arts for many years to the catacombs, Jean Kemming instantly felt like he had lost his parents. This was basically sending him to his death. The old man completely ignored him. Give him another year? He said the same thing every year, and he had an excuse every year. Previously, Governor General Zhang had not broken through to rank 7. As a rank 6 Governor General Zhang, his deterrent power to the various cities below him had not reached its peak. Considering the complexity of the local situation, the Governor General had not made a big move. However, now that the Governor General had broken through to rank 7, he already had the deterrent power to suppress one side. In order to sweep away the declining trend of Nanjiang's martial arts, it was necessary to kill a chicken to warn the monkeys. Not only in Auspicious Sun, but Jean Kemming was not the only chicken to be killed this time. He, the second-ranked deputy director of the Department of Education, had personally come to Auspicious Sun, actually prepared to take down Jean Kemming directly. As for the commander in Auspicious Sun, if he did not interfere, then so be it. If he dared to interfere, then he should not blame him for not giving face. Killing a chicken to warn the monkeys. Auspicious Sun's commander was also within the scope of the monkeys. Seeing that the old man was unmoved, Jean Kemming suddenly gritted his teeth and said, "Deputy Luo, I want to go down and see the situation." The old man glanced at him and said lightly, "Do as you wish. There are people from the Department of Investigation Services at the Vitality Assessment Area. Also, I will always be here. If you think you can disappear under my eyes, then that's your own skill. I wouldn't dare. Jean Kemming hurriedly shook his head. Running away now would only lead to death. Even if he went to the catacombs, he might not necessarily die. However, if he ran away now, he would definitely die. He had no intention of doing so at all. Go. The old man naturally knew the reason why he went down. It was nothing more than to put in some effort to save himself. After all, Jean Kemming was a rank 3 martial artist. Although he was a mediocre official, he was not guilty of a heinous crime. Not detaining him on the spot was actually giving him a chance. However, only they knew how slim this hope was. Jean Kemming left in a hurry. In the main control room, one of the inspectors who had not spoken all this while, a refined man in his 30s who was not too old, chuckled. "I've always heard that Deputy Luo takes good care of his subordinates. I've finally seen it for myself today. It's Director Jin's fortune to have a superior like you. If there's a chance in the future, I'd like to come to Nanjiang. I'm looking forward to working under you, Deputy Luo," the old man smiled. "I'm sorry. I'm also looking forward to working with the talented youths in the department. However, the chances of Jean Kemming passing the test are slim." He said this because he had guessed what Jean Kemming was going to do next. Perhaps this was the only thing he could do. However, it was not easy to reach 100 students with 120 calories and above vitality inside the assessment center. As the doctor said strip, the 10 people in the group began to take off their clothes. When Fong Ping was down to his underwear, he stopped. Out of the other 9 people, 7 of them stopped as well. But in the crowd, the other 2 continued to strip until they were completely naked. Seeing the 2 idiots, Tan Hao and Yang Jian, stripped naked and showing off their little brothers, the others' faces darkened. Some of them even tried to hold back their laughter. The doctor in charge of the examination was speechless. After a while, he said, the physical surgery department only examines large scars. The main point is to prevent the scars from being too severe. If there's a vitality outburst during a breakthrough, it'll cause a serious impact. Therefore, just a rough look is enough. Also, I just said, leave your underwear. The middle-aged male doctor did not know whether to laugh or cry. Wasn't I clear enough? Even if there's a small scar on the area covered by your underwear, it won't hurt, do you understand? These two idiots were naked. Are they showing off, or what? The doctor said a few words and ignored them. After a simple examination, he stamped on everyone's physical examination forms. Fong Ping looked at the two idiots, who did not hear the rules clearly and still looked smug. He felt ashamed to be in the same group as them. Do you think your little brothers are magnificent? Magnificent. Fong Ping did not bother to mock them. He put on his clothes and hurried out of the examination room. He would not be with these two idiots for the next physical examination. Fong Ping saw Tan Jinping as soon as he left the examination room. When he saw Tan Jinping, Fong Ping was stunned. Were these martial artists not allowed to enter? Chapter 57. The moment Tan Jinping saw Fong Ping, he quickly waved at him. After a while, the two of them found a place with fewer people and stopped for a while. Tan Jinping asked impatiently, Student Fong Ping, can you tell me how high your vitality is? Fong Ping glanced at him from the corner of his eye. Seeing the urgency on his face, he muttered softly, Uncle Tan, I haven't been tested before. Although he knew that his vitality was limited, he did not know what Tan Jinping was up to since he was in such a hurry. Naturally, Fong Ping chose to hide his trump card. You must have cultivated the methods of honing before, right? Yes, I have. Then do you feel that your qi and blood are surging, but you can't increase it anymore? Fong Ping understood right away. Tan Jinping was talking about the bottleneck of 149 calories. After some thought, Fong Ping did not answer him directly. Instead, he asked curiously, Uncle Tan, why are you asking about this? The vitality test will begin soon. We'll know how much it is once we test it. Tan Jinping saw that he didn't say anything and knew that this kid wasn't an honest person. After thinking for a while, Tan Jinping said in a low voice, Let's put it this way. If your vitality has really reached a point where it can no longer be increased, then judging from the strength of your vitality just now, you should be close to your limit or have already reached your limit. The limit I'm talking about is the limit of aspiring martial artists. You should know what that means. Are you talking about the limit between 149 calories and 150 calories? Not bad. Tan Jinping continued. I had some guesses before, but I wasn't sure. A potential martial artist with 149 calories is also known as a peak potential martial artist. Fong Ping was not in a hurry. He waited for him to finish, but he did not speak. He continued to look at him. Tan Jinping had come looking for him in such a hurry and asked if he had reached the limits of an aspiring martial artist. He must have his reasons. Who? Tan Jinping felt a little helpless. This kid didn't seem like a high school student at all. After thinking for a moment, he realized that this kid had Wang Jinyoung behind him. It would not be easy to fool him. With that in mind, Tan Jinping said frankly, Auspicious Sun City has not been doing well in the martial sciences examinations for the past few years. If we're still at the bottom this year, the higher-ups might hold us accountable. Earlier, Director Jean of Auspicious Sun's Department of Education approached us, hoping that we could provide information on students with vitality above 115 calories. He hoped that he could use the pills to help them break through 120 calories during the vitality assessment later. But it's too dangerous, so we don't dare to act rashly. Director Jean then mentioned the matter of extreme martial artists, and I thought of you. Tan Jinping did not elaborate, but Fong Ping understood the gist of it. If Auspicious Sun City's results in this year's martial sciences examinations continued to be poor, Auspicious Sun City's Department of Education would be held accountable. As for whether they would be dismissed or demoted, Fong Ping had no idea. In any case, it was definitely nothing good. He searched for a group of students whose vitality was close to 120 calories. Director Jean personally provided pills to help them break through to 120 calories. However, how many students had vitality close to 120 calories? Moreover, if he wanted to increase his vitality by a few normal vitality pills might not even be effective. He might need to use rank 1 vitality pills. However, rank 1 vitality pills were commonly used by rank 2 martial artists. They were extremely potent. If a student with low vitality were to consume it, there was a high chance that he or she would die. Tan Jinping and the others were a little scared. They didn't really support this plan and were afraid of being implicated by Chief Jean. In the end, the topic shifted to Fang Ping. The 3 martial artists had seen Fang Ping's vitality outburst earlier and guessed that he was nearing his limit. Even if he did not have 149 calories, he would still have 145 calories. Fang Ping, whose vitality was extremely high, would not face too much danger if he consumed a rank 1 vitality pill. If he consumed a rank 1 vitality pill, even if his vitality was not at 149 calories, there was a possibility that he could achieve an outburst of 149 calories. The risk was much lower than looking for those students, and the chances of success were much higher too. After roughly understanding the implications, Fang Ping's eyes moved slightly. He laughed dryly. Uncle Tan, I don't think my vitality has reached 149 calories yet. It's okay. Your outburst was at least above 145 calories. As long as you consume a rank 1 vitality pill, the outburst test, it's too risky. Fang Ping shook his head hurriedly. Uncle Tan, don't think that I don't know. Aspiring martial artists haven't completed their bone honing. The rank 1 vitality pill's effect is too strong. You're different. Moreover, Director Jean is a rank 3 martial artist, the director of Auspicious Sun City's Department of Education. Fang Ping said lightly, rank 3 martial artist? I wonder what rank Brother Wang is. Should I call Brother Wang and ask? Tan Jinping's words earlier were a little threatening. Of course, he did not make it very clear, but Fang Ping was not stupid. Naturally, he understood. Tan Jinping's tone faltered. He had almost forgotten about this. Fang Ping was not a rootless duckweed. This guy still had Wang Jinyang standing behind him. However, when he caught a glimpse of Fang Ping's expression, Tan Jinping suddenly understood. This kid was not trying to reject him. He was making conditions. Tan Jinping did not know whether to laugh or cry at the thought. He felt like he was not talking to a high school student. Putting Jean Kemming aside, Tan Jinping was a martial artist and the deputy director of Sun City's Department of Education. If Fang Ping could do it, he would have agreed long ago. After all, he was not the one who was bleeding. Tan Jinping had been shocked by Director Jin's eagerness. Now that he had recovered, he smiled immediately. You kid, I know what you mean. You're Hao and Tao's friend, so Uncle Tan will naturally side with you. However, even if you have Wang Jinyang's support, you can't go too far. After all, Director Jin's position in Auspicious Sun City is not ordinary. If you help Director Jin this time, you'll definitely owe him a favor. But if the conditions are too much, not only will you lose your favor, but you'll also have a thorn in your side. Even if you don't care, your friends and relatives are all in Auspicious Sun. Uncle Tan, I understand. Fang Ping interrupted. I've never interacted with Director Jean before, and I don't know the severity of the situation. You're Tan Hao and Tan Tao's father. I don't think you'd want to harm me. However, there was indeed some risk involved in this matter. If one were to take a risk, it had to be worth the risk. After all, there's hope for me to become a martial artist. It's not worth it to take a risk for such a small profit. That's true. Tan Jinping admitted that Fang Ping was right. Although he did not think that the risk was high, there was still a risk. letting a prospective martial artist like Fong Ping, who had a 90% chance of getting into a martial arts university and had hopes of becoming a martial artist, take the risk would definitely come with a price. After pondering for a moment, Tan Jinping prompted, Director Jean previously asked US to find 30 students with vitality close to 120 calories. One normal vitality pill is the minimum guarantee. It's very likely that they'll all be given a rank, 1 vitality pill. The market price of a rank, 1 vitality pill, was 300,000 yuan. Of course, with Director Jin's resources, he could buy it at 70% of the market price. If all of them were given rank, 1 vitality pills, it would be worth more than 6 million. However, it's not necessarily a good thing to be greedy, and you'll lose your favor. On this basis, I think Director Jean won't say no if you ask for pills or cash at half the price. Tan Jinping revealed everything to Fong Ping, thinking that it was not his own money, so he did not feel bad spending it. Although he did not expect Fong Ping to help him much in the future, there was no harm in befriending him. He had said something he should not have said in a moment of desperation. This young man was quite vengeful. Telling him everything now would earn him a favor. Fong Ping's eyes lit up. Was there such a good thing? This was a good thing that came knocking on his door. The vitality check was a must-do next, and he could earn some money at the same time. Of course, Fong Ping would not mind. After Tan Jinping finished, Fong Ping said immediately, Uncle Tan, I'm just a little bit away from my limit. As long as I take a rank, 1 vitality pill, the chances of reaching my limit are very high. Of course, 1 might not be enough. If I take the risk and try 2, I'm 90% sure I'll succeed. As long as you provide me with 2 rank, 1 vitality pills, and 2 million in cash, I'll risk my life for this once. After all, if something happens to me, my family will lose their pillar of support. My parents aren't in good health either. The corner of Tan Jinping's mouth twitched as he listened to Fong Ping's pitiful words. You'll risk your life? But why do I feel like you're already at your limit? Fong Ping did not ask for too much, though. 2 rank, 1 vitality pills, and 2 million in cash. It was much cheaper than Jean Kemming's original plan. Moreover, Jean Kemming looked like he was about to jump off a building. Even if Fong Ping offered a higher price, Jean Kemming would not reject him. Thinking of this, Tan Jinping nodded. As long as you can ensure that your vitality reaches the 149 calories limit during the test, I'll agree to your conditions on behalf of Director Jean. Then I'll have to trouble you, Uncle Tan. All right. Fong Ping chuckled. Uncle Tan, you can also say that I asked for 3 rank, 1 vitality pills. Just give me 2 when the time comes. Tan Jinping was stunned again. Are you really a senior high school student? You're still in the mood to think about giving me benefits at this time? Is this considered as travel expenses? Fong Ping was still smiling. He continued, Uncle Tan, tell me more about the risks I'll have to take. Also, after I get into a martial arts university, the few million won't really matter much. I think that Mr. Director will understand me and even be grateful that I'm willing to take the risk. I won't tell Brother Wang about this. I don't want Brother Wang to worry and cause trouble. Tan Jinping's face stiffened. You've thought this through quite thoroughly. Fong Ping was using Wang Jinyang as a deterrent. He had even thrown the carrot stick at him. Jean Kemming might not hold a grudge because he was grasping at straws. Even if he did, Jean Kemming would probably give up after hearing Fong Ping's words. At that moment, Tan Jinping felt a ripple in his heart. This kid was just as he had imagined. He was not an honest person. Fong Ping was prepared to use a rank, 1 vitality pill to shut him up. Even if he did not, he knew what to do. All right, the vitality test is about to begin. I'll talk to Director Jean immediately. When you arrive at the entrance of the Physical Assessment Center, I'll give you the pill on the spot. As for the money, I'll transfer it to you after the test. Also, Tan Jinping said sternly, Also, you must ensure that your vitality reaches the limit. Otherwise, even with Wang Jinyoung around, you'll still get into big trouble. I understand. Don't worry, Uncle Tan. Outside the physical assessment center, Jean Kemming was sweating profusely. If not for the fact that he wanted to maintain his dignity in front of the others, he would have barged in himself. As the director of Auspicious Sun City's education department, as long as he did not go to the vitality test area, patrolling other areas was part of his job scope. Tan Jinping had not come out yet, but the vitality test was about to begin. Jean Kemming cursed in his heart. If he had known, he would have gathered a group of students to help him. As long as he offered enough benefits and threats, these students would not refuse, even if they knew the risks. As for Fang Ping, although his subordinates in Serenity and Rising Stream had said that he was close to rank 1, who knew if he had reached the limit, just as he was considering whether to go in, Tan Jinping had already rushed out. Jean Kemming asked quickly, "How did it go?" "Director." Tan Jinping told him what had happened in a low voice. Although he did not do exactly what Fang Ping had said, he emphasized that Fang Ping had a bright future and Wang Jinyoung's support. 2 million in cash and 3 rank, 1 vitality pills were Fang Ping's conditions. Jean Kemming did not care about that. As one of the top 5 giants in Auspicious Sun City, even if he was not greedy, his net worth was far more than that. He had already prepared 30 rank, 1 vitality pills. Now, Fang Ping was asking for less than he had expected. After Tan Jinping had finished, Jean Kemming said immediately, "As long as he can reach the limit, I guarantee that I will not discount the conditions." As for whether he could reach the limit, when he remembered that the person in the lobby was in the main control room upstairs, he did not have a future to speak of. "I don't think the person that Wang Jinyoung has his eyes on will disappoint me," Jean Kemming comforted himself. Wang Jinyoung was young and in the same grade as him. The person that such a person had his eyes on would not be too bad. Since the other party dared to agree and state his conditions, it meant that he was confident. Jean Kemming no longer hesitated. He took a bottle of pills from the secretary and passed it to Tan Jinping. "Send it over immediately. I won't show up." "Okay." Tan Jinping glanced at Fang Ping, who was waiting not far away. He gestured at the bottle in his hand and walked toward Fang Ping. Soon, Fang Ping received 3 rank, 1 vitality pills. He did not split the loot with Tan Jinping on the spot. Jean Kemming was outside, so he had to wait until the matter was over. With the pills in hand, Fang Ping was overjoyed. This was a free lunch from the sky. Not long after Fang Ping received the pills, the vitality assessment officially began. The students who had passed the assessment began to gather at the vitality assessment area. Jean Kemming used the excuse of patrolling the assessment area to bring Tan Jinping's subordinates into the vitality assessment area, accompanied by the Department of Investigation Services, the supervisory team, and the patrol team. Director Luo, who was in the main control room upstairs, knew his purpose. According to the rules, Auspicious Sun City's local leaders were not allowed to enter the vitality assessment area to prevent cheating. However, with the Department of Investigation Services, the supervisory team, and the patrol team accompanying him, no one thought that Jean Kemming was capable of cheating. Eager to save himself, Jean Kemming wanted to know the results as soon as possible, and Director Luo was willing to satisfy him. At the vitality assessment area, the first batch of students entered the vitality chamber and the assessment began. At that moment, many people were extremely anxious. Fang Ping, who was still waiting, was relaxed and at ease. Wealth: 2896000 vitality, 149 cal mentality, 172 Hertz. The 3 rank, 1 vitality pills had increased his wealth by 630,000. Moreover, with the increase in wealth, Fang Ping might be able to gain a deeper understanding of the system. For example, if he gave a rank 1 vitality pill to Tan Jinping, would the increase in wealth be deducted? This did not happen when Fang Ping gave pocket money to Fang Yuan, but it was hard to say when it came to items. Chapter 58. At the Vitality Assessment Area. It was Fong Ping's first time seeing what a vitality chamber looked like. It was shaped like a small house. That was a compliment. In fact, it was almost the same as a crystal coffin. From 01 to 60, there were a total of 60 vitality chambers in the first assessment area. Wu Zhihao, who had just arrived, said covetously, "A vitality chamber costs more than $1 million. Ordinary people really couldn't afford to buy this thing. The small vitality measuring machine in Wu Zhihao's house was second-hand. As Wu Zhihao spoke, a middle-aged man in a white coat walked out of the vitality assessment area. Students, vitality is the most important thing in the martial sciences exam. Many students are willing to pay any price to pass the vitality assessment. However, I have to remind everyone that you only have one life. Cherish it. Martial artists should fight, but not blindly. Many students have prepared pills for the vitality assessment and had a sudden outburst. This is allowed by the rules. However, you have to think this through. Some students are willing to take pills that exceed their tolerance limit just to get a temporary outburst. Every year, there are students who overestimate themselves and try it. Every year, there are deaths and injuries. Martial artists are not martial artists, nor are they boorish. Literature can bring peace to a country, but martial arts can bring peace to a country. Only those who are well-versed in both literature and martial arts are martial artists. Those who only use their strength without using their brains are thugs and boorish people, not martial artists. Therefore, according to the rules, I will remind everyone one last time. If there are any accidents during the vitality assessment, you will have to bear the consequences. The man in the white coat said coldly. Students who did not care about anything and took pills that exceeded their tolerance limit died in vain. The country needed a group of martial artists with brains, especially in places like martial arts universities, who knew when to give up and recognize themselves. This was the kind of person the government needed. As for casual martial artists, part of the reason they were miserable was because they only had strength and lacked the necessary wisdom. Fong Ping did not say anything, but Wu Zhihao, who was beside him, looked at him strangely. Boorish people who don't use their brains. Wu Zhihao muttered. Those words should have been directed at Fong Ping. Fong Ping did not react immediately when he heard his muttering. Then he thought of something and said with a dark expression, "Get lost!" Hee. Wu Zhihao was overjoyed. He had finally gained the upper hand. When Fong Ping's vitality skyrocketed, wasn't it because he had taken a pill that exceeded the limit? However, Fong Ping was lucky and did not die. Now the vitality test officially begins. Students, please enter the vitality chamber according to the number, school, name, and examinee number displayed on the screen. The number represents the number of the vitality chamber. The white coat scientist shouted, causing the students to quieten down. Then they all raised their heads and looked at the big screen. Number 01, Onping Experimental High School, Lisa Bean, 20083405-1176 inch. Number 02, Auspicious Sun First High School, Chung Shuejian, 2008340510-336. Number 36, Sun City Number 1 Middle School, Zhongnan. The first batch of 60 students walked out of the crowd when they saw the big screen. Zhongnan from Class 4 was among the first batch of students to be tested. Zhongnan's expression was tense. She was a little nervous, and there was a little despair in the depths of her eyes. She knew that the possibility of her getting into a martial arts university was very, very small. So small that she did not even have to consider it. Her vitality had not even reached 110 calories. She might not even pass the physical assessment. The moment Zhongnan took a step forward, someone suddenly shouted, "Zhongnan, it doesn't matter if you don't get in. Let's go to social sciences together." Fong Ping and the others turned their heads and saw Zhonghao's face turn red. He hid in the crowd as soon as he finished shouting. Zhongnan, who had been nervous just a moment ago, blushed. She did not even dare to look back as she rushed into the testing area. The white coat scientist, who had disappeared to who knew where, suddenly floated out and shouted, "Keep quiet!" He even glanced at Zhang Hao as he spoke, but said nothing more. This young man's vitality was not that great, but he picked a good time to pick up girls. He had a bright future ahead of him. In the central control room of the vitality testing area, when the first batch of students entered, the video of them entering the vitality chamber was quickly transmitted. Other than the video, the central control room was also connected to 60 vitality chambers. The test results would be reported immediately. At the same time, the results would also be reported directly to the relevant departments in the Education Ministry. Jean Kemming stared at the various data and information on the computer. When the first batch of students entered and the results were reported, Jean Kemming's expression was frighteningly ugly. He had given Fong Ping pills in hopes that he could reach the standard of a peak-aspiring martial artist. However, he understood that he should not put all his eggs in one basket. Jean Kemming also hoped that these students would perform better. If there were 100 students with vitality above 120 calories, he would not have to rely solely on Fong Ping. However, none of the 60 students had reached 120 calories. Forget 120 calories. There was not even a single student with 115 calories. Taking a deep breath, Jean Kemming asked in a low voice, "How many students are there in the first assessment area?" There were 3895 who participated in the physical assessment. However, 25 of them were eliminated in the previous tests for injuries, vision, and bones. Now, there are 3,870 left. That means there will be 65 tests? Jean Kemming mumbled. The first assessment area gathered most of the famous high schools in auspicious Sun City. Only 50 students with vitality above 120 calories could pass. In other words, out of every 4 tests, at least 3 had to be at 120 calories. Suppressing his worries, Jean Kemming did not say anything else and continued to stare at the computer. The first batch was completely wiped out. None of them had reached 120 calories. The second batch of 60 people was completely wiped out again. The third batch was the same. However, this batch produced a student with 119 calories, just one step away. The fourth batch, by the time the 6th assessment was over, the total number of students had reached 360. Jean Kemming could not hold back his anger anymore. He turned to Tan Jinping and the other 2 and said through gritted teeth, "I admit that auspicious Sun City's Department of Education did not pay enough attention to the martial arts education in the counties. But the education budget every year is not missing out on you. Take Serenity City as an example. Last year, the education budget was 280 million. Where's the money? 360 people. If the ratio was expanded to normal students, there would be at least 4,000 senior high school students. None of them had 120 calories vitality. Where did the money go? Bastards." Jean Kemming cursed. It was not that he did not know some things, but all these years, everyone had gotten used to muddling through. As long as it was not his money, he did not feel the pinch. However, he was going to be in trouble now. When he thought about how these guys were fine, Jean Kemming wanted to kill them on the spot. Tan Jinping and the other 2 were parched, but they dared not say a word in rebuttal. Where did the money go? Who the hell knew? Logically, a school like Sun City No. 1 High School should have a professional martial arts class and hired martial artists to teach. Besides that, outstanding students would be rewarded with pills. Normal pills like the blood replenishing pill and chi replenishing pill were prepared for these poor kids. Sun City did not have them. Not only Sun City, but most schools in auspicious Sun City did not have them. Only auspicious Sun City No. 1 High School had some. After all, it was right under their noses. If they did not pursue this matter, then so be it. If they did, who knew how big of a mess it would cause? If Fong Ping had heard all this, he might have thought through some things. Previously, Fang Ping had thought that the government was too unreliable if they did not even have a professional martial arts class, despite the importance it placed on the martial sciences. They had to rely on self-study. In reality, such an establishment existed in the documents. However, it was not so easy to implement it. The more remote and backward place was, the harder it was to implement it. It was like the 9-year free education in his past life. It had been implemented in big cities for many years, but it had only been implemented in remote mountain villages. Jean Kemming was burning with anger, but it did not stop him from continuing the assessment. Batch after batch of students entered the vitality chamber. Again and again they were disappointed and even despaired when it was the 10th batch. Tan Jinping suddenly said excitedly, "Director, look! Sun City No. 1 High Schools. Wu Jihao has reached 120 calories. Jean Kemming quickly looked over. His mood improved slightly, and he nodded lightly. Sun City No. 1 High School is not bad. He thought of Wang Jinyang and Fang Ping. As for the Serenity District's Board of Education leader, Jean Kemming had already made up his mind. If he did not die this time, the bastards in Serenity District would all die. Auspicious Sun City No. 1 High School had spent so many resources, only to give him such an explanation. In the vitality assessment area, when Wu Zhihao walked out, he was a little exhausted. Fang Ping and the others hurried over to help him up. Yang Jian asked hurriedly, "How did it go?" I'm not sure. I tried my best." Wu Zhihao panted heavily. He lowered his voice and said, "I was just thinking that this bastard Fang Ping is too despicable. He was clearly not as good as us before, but he suddenly surpassed us. Envy, jealousy, hatred, anger, and a desire to kill him all burst out at once. I think the results are pretty good." Yang Jian's eyes lit up. He asked quickly, "Really?" "Really," Wu Zhihao panted. "Plus the vitality pill I just ate. I think my vitality won't be lower than 118 calories. It might even be higher. Amazing!" The others looked envious. Fang Ping, on the other hand, looked terrible. He wanted to kick this guy to death. "Why are you thinking about me when you're having an emotional outburst? Can't you think about some porn?" As they were talking, Yang Jian suddenly said, "It's my turn." Wu Zhihao encouraged him. "Go for it. Think about killing Fang Ping. Get lost." Fang Ping cursed and shook the guy off. Wu Zhihao did not mind. He smiled and said, "All right, I'll wait for you guys outside. I did well on the spot this time. I'll treat you to a meal later. I have to thank you. Are you going to get lost or not? Get lost. Get lost right now." Central Control Room. The Serenity District martial artist said in surprise, "Lu Yang is 122 calories from auspicious Sun City No. 1 High School. Xia Qingyi is 121 calories from Serenity Sun City No. 1 High School. Zhao Shui is 124 calories from auspicious Sun City No. 1 High School." The leader of Serenity District's Board of Education smiled like an idiot. He had almost peed his pants earlier. Jean Kemming's eyes were filled with murderous intent. He did not know what was going on, but the students with high vitality and serenity were all at the back. Now, after 3 batches, there were already 6 students with 120 calories in serenity. Until now, there were a total of 8 students with 120 calories in Serenity District. On Sun City's side, there were 4. Rising Creek had the fewest with only 2. More than half of the students had been tested. Jean Kemming had already given up on these people. Ignoring the Serenity District leader's joy, he asked in a low voice, "Which batch is Fang Ping in?" One of the leaders of the testing center looked at the people from the Department of Investigation Services, the supervisory team, and the patrol team beside him. He did not know if he should answer. The man from the supervisory team from the Department of Education smiled and said, "That's fine. If Director Jean wants to know, then help me check." Jean Kemming smiled to express his gratitude. He glanced at the computer screen, then turned to Tan Jinping and said, Tan Tao is your son, right? Not bad. 121 calories. Tan Jinping said dryly, it's just SOO. He can't compare to the one in your family, director. Jean Kemming did not continue. He waited for the testing center to check. After a while, someone said, Fong Ping from Sun City No. 1 High School is in the 46th batch. They're still testing the 31st batch. You'll have to wait for a while. Thank you. Jean Kemming thanked him and said nothing after that. Even when a genius from auspicious Sun City No. 1 High School was tested to have 132 calories, Jean Kemming did not say anything. Time passed slowly. Suddenly, Tan Jinping reminded in a low voice, Director, it's Fong Ping's turn. Jean Kemming had been paying attention, so naturally he saw it too. He squinted at the data feed and the surveillance video of Vitality Pod number 06, not even in the mood to blink. Vitality Pod number 06. As soon as Fong Ping entered, he felt that the space was too small and cramped. Fong Ping scanned the place from top to bottom. He also saw the surveillance cameras. After some thought, he took out a pill from his pocket, covered it with his palm, and swallowed it in one gulp. What he swallowed was not the 3-rank, 1 vitality pills, but the normal vitality pill that Tan Jinping had given him earlier. He had said that he had almost reached his limit. There were surveillance cameras on the spot, as well as in the physical assessment center outside. If the director checked the surveillance afterward and saw that he had not swallowed the pill, would he not be lying? Although he had achieved his goal, Fong Ping understood the minds of those in power. They would still be unhappy, now that he had consumed a normal vitality pill. Even if the director knew that it was not a rank 1 vitality pill, he would still feel much better. At least Fong Ping had given him face. As soon as the pill entered his stomach, Fong Ping felt a wave of vitality spreading from his stomach. This feeling, Fong Ping's eyes lit up. This vitality force is different. The vitality force contained in the pill was similar to the vitality force condensed by the methods of honing. In other words, the vitality force in the pill was much more condensed than the one provided by the system. There was no need to purify it. No wonder Fong Ping was deep in thought. The vitality force provided by the system was a little weak. It was not very effective in breaking through bottlenecks. Perhaps he could use the pill to break through his 150 calories vitality. Fong Ping did not dwell on it. He waited for a while, and suddenly, with a roar, his vitality began to surge. Central Control Room. Jean Kemming clenched his fists and stared at the computer screen. His heart was in his throat as he watched the numbers flicker. 5 seconds later, Jean Kemming suddenly swung his fist. There was a series of explosions in the air. Good. Director Jean. A few people beside him suddenly stood up. The inspectors frowned and said, Control yourself. Jean Kemming, a rank 3 martial artist, could destroy the central control room if he did not control himself. Jean Kemming nodded quickly. His face was full of smiles and relief. He did not care about being scolded at this moment. 149 calories. He really is a peak aspiring martial artist. Fong Ping, very good. Very good. Jean Kemming wanted to laugh out loud. He did not have to go to the catacombs anymore. The others were surprised too. The staff in charge of the data transmission muttered, It seemed to be jumping toward 150 calories just now. Unfortunately, it still stopped at 149 calories. This meant that Fong Ping had not really broken through his limit. Chapter 59. Outside the Physical Examination Center. At this time, many of the students who had finished their tests did not leave. As soon as Fong Ping came out, Wu Zhihao rushed forward and asked, How was it? Who knows? We won't be able to see the results. That's true. Wu Zhihao was a little nervous as he replied, We still have to wait until the day after tomorrow to find out. I'm so nervous that I'm dying. Fong Ping ignored him. He looked around before asking, Where's Zhang Hao and the rest? I'm going back to the hotel first, Wu Zhihao sighed softly and said, Zhang Hao and the others probably can't pass. They're a little disappointed. Fang Ping did not say anything else. If this had happened to him, he would have been disappointed too. After chatting for a while, Fang Ping was about to leave when someone behind him shouted, Student Fang Ping! Fang Ping turned his head and saw Tan Jinping walking toward him. After a while, in the corner, Tan Jinping said with a smile, You sure are open-minded. Aren't you afraid that you'll lose the money later? Fang Ping said nonchalantly, How is that possible? Someone as important as Director Jean would surely pay me less than this bit of money. Moreover, Uncle Tan is still here, so of course I don't have to worry. You brat. Interesting. Tan Jinping couldn't help but laugh. Then, with a faint smile, he said, Looks like you're not surprised at all that you've reached your limit? Fang Ping laughed dryly. How could that be? I'm still very surprised. I didn't expect that I could reach 149 calories. Ha ha ha. Tan Jinping immediately laughed out loud. This kid wasn't going to lie at all. Looking at Fang Ping's expression, it was obvious that he was not surprised that his vitality had reached 149 calories. His confidence meant that he had already reached his limit. Thinking of this, Tan Jinping sighed. The younger generation will surpass us in time. As for the follow-up, I'll handle it. It's not convenient for Director Jean to make an appearance. All right, I'll have to trouble Uncle Tan then. As Fang Ping said that, he took out a bottle from his pocket. It was the same bottle that he had used to store the normal vitality pills. Uncle Tan, this is yours. Tan Jinping glanced at him and said with a smile, You're not stingy. Don't you regret it? How could that be? If it weren't for Uncle Tan, I wouldn't have gotten anything. This is how it should be. Tan Jinping laughed again. He didn't bother with pleasantries and directly took the bottle. When it was time to be humble, when it was time to be hypocritical, and when it was time to be hypocritical, there was no need to be hypocritical. The two of them chatted for a while. Fang Ping noticed Wu Zhihao looking at him from a short distance away. He thought for a moment and asked, Uncle Tan, do you know the vitality of Wu Zhihao and the others? Wu Zhihao. Tan Jinping had been watching for a long time and had a deep impression of Wu Zhihao. This was the first student whose vitality had reached 120 calories. Not bad. 120 calories. The standard for a martial arts university shouldn't be a problem. 120 calories? Fang Ping was a little surprised. That's quite high. Uncle Tan, can you tell me about the others? You still care about this? Tan Jinping chuckled and said, There were too many people, and I didn't remember many. First high schools, Zhoubin had 128 calories. Chenjia had 122 calories, and Wu Zhihao had 120 calories. All in all, Sun City had performed well this year. Number 1 high school had produced 6 students who were above 120 calories. There was one from number 2 high school and another from a township high school. There are a total of 8 of them with vitality above 120 calories. Sun City had produced a total of 8 students with vitality of more than 120 calories. It had to be said that this result had exceeded Tan Jinping's expectations. Of course, Fang Ping was an exception. Wu Zhihao, on the other hand, was also an exception. Coupled with the fact that his vitality was getting higher every year, there were 8 of them in this year's batch. Martial arts universities have no problem with vitality above 120 calories. It's hard to say if it's lower than 120 calories this year. However, NMAU might recruit more students this year, so there's hope for 116 to 119 calories. Tan Jinping did not mind talking to Fang Ping a little more. He analyzed, It depends on the situation. Also, if you do well in cultural studies, you'll get preferential treatment too. If your vitality is above 116 calories, it wouldn't be strange if you do well in cultural studies. This year, there might be more than 10 people in Sun City who can enter martial arts universities. Tan Jinping said happily. It's more than last year. It's beyond my expectations. There were only 9 in Sun City last year, and there were more this year. Although Director Jean did not seem too satisfied, it was good that there was improvement. As for the districts and counties in Serenity, judging from Director Jin's attitude, they might be in trouble. Of course, these things had nothing to do with Fang Ping and the others. The two of them chatted a little more. Fang Ping saw Tan Jinping raise his hand to look at the time and said immediately, "Uncle Tan, I won't disturb you anymore. I'll go back first." "Okay, I'll look for you when Director Jean is done." As soon as Tan Jinping left, Fang Ping quickly checked his wealth. When he saw that his wealth had not changed, Fang Ping's eyes lit up. The pills had been given away, but his wealth was still there. This was a good thing. He did not know, though, how would the money be calculated if he sold the pills? Would it be to compensate for the difference in price, or would it be to maintain his original wealth? He could try these next. However, Fang Ping guessed that it was more likely to be compensated for the difference in price. After all, in doing business, most of the time, the difference in price was earned. If this was not included, then it would be too difficult to increase his wealth. Back in the crowd, Wu Zhihao asked anxiously, "Fang Ping, what did Director Tan say?" Fang Ping chuckled. "What can he say? He said something about vitality." "Really? How much do I have?" Wu Zhihao was so anxious that he was scratching his head. Compared to finding out the day after tomorrow, it would not be so torturous now. "You?" Fang Ping shook his head and sighed. "It's a pity for you. Ah? How could it be?" Wu Zhihao said dejectedly, "I think I'm in good shape this time. I'm already above 116 calories, and it wasn't time for the physical assessment yet. I ate a vitality pill and used the emotional outburst method." Wu Zhihao felt that he should have at least 118 calories. Now that Fang Ping said it's a pity, did it mean that he had overestimated himself? Fang Ping was overjoyed to see this. "This is what you get for thinking about hacking me to death. I'll scare you to death." Seeing his dazed expression, Fang Ping laughed. "You're only 120 calories. What?" "It's true." Wu Zhihao snapped out of his daze and said in surprise, "You're not lying to me?" "Why would I lie to you? 120 calories is so weak. I'm too embarrassed to lie to you. I'm really 120 calories. Wu Zhihao's expression kept changing. Soon he scolded angrily, "Bastard! What did you mean by it's a pity just now?" "I already said that you're too weak. You're much lower than me. Of course it's a pity. Get lost." Although Wu Zhihao was shocked, he was in a good mood. He asked immediately, "How much are you?" 149 calories. Get lost. I'm serious. Fang Ping turned to look at him, speechless. "You don't believe me?" "Of course. Only an idiot would believe me." "All right." Fang Ping admitted defeat. After struggling for a moment, Fang Ping asked tentatively, 125 calories? It's all right, it's all right. Not bad. It's so high, and it's even at the reward threshold," Wu Zhihao said to himself. Fang Ping's expression was a little strange. "Damn it, I'm telling the truth. But you don't believe me. I'm lying, but you believe me so easily." Fang Ping did not know whether to laugh or cry. He did not explain further. To be honest, even if he told others that his vitality was 149 calories, not many people would believe him. At most, only a few top students would believe him. The others did not feel it, so naturally they would not take it seriously. Then Wu Zhihao asked the others. Fang Ping briefly told them about Zhou Bin and the others. He did not know about Yang Jian and the others, but he was sure that their vitality was below 120 calories. Wu Zhihao was happy, but he still remembered to take care of the others' feelings. When they returned to the hotel, he did not mention the results of the vitality checkup. Sun City, Lakeview Gardens. Fang Yuan had asked her father to leave her phone in the morning. She had been staring at her phone since early in the morning. It was already noon, but Fang Ping had not called back. Fang Yuan could not wait any longer and dialed Fang Ping's number. Fang Ping, are you done with your physical assessment? I just finished. I'm eating now. How are you? Vitality checkup, 149 calories. Fang Yuan's expression darkened. She said impatiently, Can't you be more serious? Mom and Dad are waiting too. How much is it? Oh, right, have you announced the results? Fang Ping, who was on the other side of the phone, felt a little tired. I'm an honest man, but you guys forced me to lie. It's fine if you don't believe me. Vitality above 120 calories is no problem for martial arts universities. Do you believe me now? Really? It couldn't be more true. You really got in. Fang Yuan was still in disbelief. Her eyes shone with ecstasy. There are still exams after this, but I passed the physical assessment anyway. Fang Yuan did not care what he said next. To them, as long as they could pass the vitality test, the rest would not be a problem. At least, that was what Fang Yuan thought. Fang Ping was not very reliable, but Fang Yuan knew that he would not lie to her at this time. Vitality above 120 calories. The girl could not sit still when she thought of that. She hung up immediately. She had to report the good news. Her parents had to report it, and her classmates had to show off. No, share the joy. Fang Yuan hung up the phone in a hurry. Fang Ping, who was eating, felt helpless. Wu Zhihao, who was sitting opposite him, said in a serious tone, Fang Ping, you're even fooling your own sister. That's not a good habit. Get lost. Fang Ping was so angry that he wanted to punch someone. Mother asterisk her, I really have 149 calories. Why doesn't anyone believe me? Fang Ping really wanted to announce the results immediately. He wanted to slap them in the face and stun them. Chapter 60. After the physical examination, everyone entered a torturous waiting period. Jean Kemming had yet to pay the rest of the money. Tan Jinping took the time to come over and roughly said, I won't pay the rest of the money until the official results are out. Of course, Fang Ping understood this and was not too worried. In the blink of an eye, it was the third. Fang Ping had thought that he was going to be famous this time. Only now did Fang Ping realize that he had been overthinking things. Because the physical assessment wasn't the end of the college entrance examination, there wouldn't be any college entrance examination golden roll. The notification for this period was very simple. The Ministry of Education and the martial arts schools announced the standard line for the physical assessment in advance. Then, when the schools received the report cards, if they wanted to check their results, they would have to go to the teachers to check. Those who passed could move on to the next round. If not, I will leave in the afternoon. If Fang Ping wanted to make a name for himself, it would be extraordinarily difficult to do so without making a public announcement. He could only wait until the Gaokao was over. At that time, with his vitality, he could make a name for himself. However, with the martial artist candidates around, Fang Ping would not be too eye-catching. After learning the method of announcement, the few of them tidied up. When they left the room, Fang Ping was a little speechless. To think that I was prepared for people to shout 666. So, only the few of us know about this? You're throwing flirtatious glances at a blind man. Wu Zhihao was even more speechless than him. Who else do you want to let know? 125 calories isn't low, but it's not even the best in school. What else do you want? Fang Ping could not help but laugh. He shook his head and said, Nothing much. I don't care if the others know or not. I just want you to know. F***CKU. If I told you I was at 149 calories, you wouldn't believe me. If you don't want to look, I'll pry open your eyes and let you see clearly. As for whether or not outsiders knew about it, Fang Ping did not really care. He was just joking. As there were many people in No. 1 high school, it was not suitable for them to go to the teacher's room one by one to check their results. Therefore, No. 1 high school rented a small conference room in the hotel and asked the examinees to wait in the conference room while the teachers announced the results together. 8:30 in the morning. In the conference room, All the students had arrived. Yang Jian muttered, I must pass, or else I'll be in deep trouble. The others weren't in the mood to pay attention to him. All of them were waiting for their teacher to come over. Soon, several teachers from number 1 middle school entered the conference room. Without any delay, the vice principal of No. 1 high school, who was in charge of leading the team, announced loudly, Students, the standard for the physical assessment this time is beyond our expectations. It was much higher than last year. Students who failed, don't be disappointed. The teacher first gave a precaution and comforted him with a few words. When the conference room quietened down, the vice principal continued, The Department of Education has just announced the standard vitality this time. 112 calories. So high. Are you kidding me? He could have entered a martial arts university with 112 calories last year. Isn't that asking him to die? I thought 110 calories was the limit. It's actually 112 calories. I'm done for. As soon as the standard line was announced, the students immediately made a ruckus. It was too high. Last year, the standard for the physical assessment was 108 calories. This year, it had increased by 4 calories. This was unimaginable in the past. The vice principal also knew that everyone was disappointed and angry, so he comforted them. You can't blame the students for this. It's mainly because there are too many applicants this year. Moreover, the standard of living had improved rapidly, and the average person's vitality was relatively high. As I said before, all roads lead to Rome, even if he did not choose the path of a martial arts university. There were other paths to choose from. Next, I will announce the names of the students who passed. Everyone, prepare for the practical assessment on the 7th. Passing the physical assessment doesn't mean that you can enter a martial arts university. Many people will still be eliminated in the later stages. After saying that, the vice principal smiled and said, However, number 1 high school's results this year are also very outstanding. Among them, Fong Ping and Wu Zhihao from Class 4, Zhou from Class 1, and Tan Tao, and Qin Jie from Class 2 have all achieved extremely outstanding results. In this martial sciences examination physical assessment, the top student in our school, and also in auspicious Sun City, is Fong Ping with a vitality of 149 calories. After a moment of silence, many people turned to look at Fong Ping. Wu Zhihao, who was sitting beside Fong Ping, was even more dumbfounded. What did the teacher say just now? Fong Ping glared at him. Who asked you not to believe my words? Were you dumbfounded now? Unfortunately, he did not get to shout 666. Everyone was shocked, but it was none of their business. There were not many who really cared. At most, they would just remember Fong Ping's name. When Fong Ping officially entered a martial arts university, the students of the next batch might worship and envy him. However, the students of the same batch would rarely feel that way. Everyone was in the same batch. The more outstanding one was, the more useless they were. At this time, it was very difficult to expect others to praise and suck up to you. Just like the Gaokao in his past life, when there was a top scorer, the people who talked about it were outsiders, the people who had nothing to do with them. The top scorer is so awesome. He actually scored so high, he's amazing. Almost all the people who talked about such things were outsiders. This batch of Gaokao students rarely said such things. The worse their results were, the less they would pay attention to it. It was heartbreaking. As for those who did exceptionally well, they would not care. They might even secretly think, he's just a little higher than me. I just made some mistakes, or else the top scorer would have been mine. The people who really talked about it were mostly the students who were not very good or very bad. This scene was also applicable at this moment. Fong Ping's 149 calories vitality might shock everyone, but they would not say anything even if they were beaten to death. Their calm expressions made Fong Ping feel that his vitality might not be 149 calories, but 119 calories. The teacher had read it wrong. It did not matter if the others did not talk about it, but Wu Zhihao was really on the verge of breaking down. Even when the vice principal read his name, 120 calories. Wu Zhihao did not pay much attention to it. Instead, he looked at Fang Ping bitterly and said, "You really didn't lie to me? What do you think? But didn't you say you had 125 calories?" Fang Ping said impatiently, "I did say I had 149 calories. Would you believe me? Damn it, I just opened my mouth, and you looked like you were joking. What else can I do? But this is too high. That's because you're too weak. I feel so hopeless." Wu Zhihao was a little dispirited. "I thought I was so awesome. Do you have to hit me like this?" After that, the names of the students who passed were announced one after another. Class 4 had exploded this year. Fang Ping had 149 calories, Wu Zhihao 120 calories, Yang Jian 116 calories, Lu Ruoqi 115 calories, out of 8 people had passed. Fang Ping was first in the whole school, and Wu Zhihao was 6th. There were 6 students in number 1 high school who had more than 120 calories. Class 1 of the elite class was the worst. Although Zhou Bin had 128 calories, he was the only one in the class who had more than 120 calories. Class 2, including the Tan brothers, had 3. These 3 classes made up all the students in number 1 high school with 120 calories. There were quite a number of students in Class 1 who had passed the physical assessment. There were 56 people in the entire number 1 high school who had more than 112 calories. It was not a low ratio. There were less than 300 candidates in number 1 high school, and more than 50 passed. There were more than 1,200 candidates in the other high schools in Sun City, and the ones who passed were about the same as number 1 high school. 1,500 students had come to take the exam, and the physical assessment alone had eliminated more than 90% of them. In order to boost morale and strike a blow to the other schools, the vice principal revealed the situation of the other schools in the end. In the entire Sun City, there were about 110 people who had passed the physical assessment this time. It was slightly more than the previous years, but number 1 high school accounted for half of them. The other schools had a higher elimination rate. When the list of those who had passed was announced, those whose names were not read were all disappointed. Some girls even started sobbing softly. "I didn't even pass the physical assessment. Why would I take the martial sciences exam? My parents live frugally and hope that I can pass the martial sciences exam. How am I going to answer to them now?" Sob, sob, sob. The crying made the students in the meeting room unhappy. The atmosphere was a little gloomy. The teachers were used to it. It was the same every year. The crying, the noise, the despair, they had experienced such feelings before. Some of them were pessimistic, and they even walked the path of no return. All the teachers could do was try their best to comfort them. Fang Ping and the others who had passed were not in the mood to celebrate. After the vice principal announced the end of the meeting, they did not stay any longer and left the meeting room. Fang Ping had just left the meeting room. His phone vibrated again. He picked up the call. It was still Fang Yuan. As soon as the call went through, Fang Yuan asked anxiously, "Have the results been announced?" She was even more anxious than Fang Ping. Although Fang Ping had said that he had passed the day before yesterday, Fang Yuan only found out later that the results had not been announced. How did she find out? She was just sharing her joy with her best friend when her friend called out her lie. That was because the results had not been announced on the 1st. Fang Yuan wanted to go to auspicious Sun City and hack Fang Ping to death because of this. If the results were not announced, where would the results come from? Of course, she did not want to lose face. Fang Yuan insisted that her brother had passed the vitality test. She had even arranged a fight with her friend. If she was not lying, she would pinch her friend's face 100 times until it looked like a pig's head. On the other hand, it would be even worse. She would be pinched 200 times. In the future, other than the nickname Round Face, she would also have the nickname Big Liar. That was why Fang Yuan was more concerned about Fang Ping's results than Fang Ping's parents. "It's been announced. 149 calories. Fang Ping did not wait for her to speak. He said immediately, "It's true. I'm not lying. Doesn't your friend have an older sister who signed up for the martial sciences exam? Just ask her to ask her sister. Your brother is a famous person in number 1 high school. Although these people are jealous and envious, there's no point in lying when it comes to vitality. Don't call me anymore. You little brat. How many times have you asked me? It's true. I'll repeat it for the last time. 149 calories. Really?" Fang Yuan was stunned. Then she said excitedly, "You're really not lying this time?" "Nope. Just go and pinch people. Just wait for me to come back and pinch your face. I won't let anyone else pinch it." Fang Yuan did not care what he said anymore. She kept giggling and hung up. Fang Ping could not help but laugh. He had not walked far when he saw Tan Jinping waving at him. Chapter 61. As a rank 3 martial artist and one of the big shots in auspicious Sun City, Jean Kemming paid without any hesitation. 2 million was not a lot to him, but it was not a small amount either. However, considering that Fang Ping was a peak aspiring martial artist and Wang Jinyang was a martial artist of the same rank, Jean Kemming did not intend to renege on his debt. Jean Kemming paid without hesitation after the physical assessment results were out. When he received the payment notification, Fang Ping beamed like a flower and bid farewell to Tan Jinping enthusiastically. Fang Ping had earned a lot from the martial sciences exam. After splitting the loot with Wang Jinyang, Fang Ping had been eating away. His wealth had dropped from the initial 3,370,000 to almost 2 million. However, Fang Ping's wealth had reached a new high. Wealth for 895000 vitality, 149 cal mentality, 172 hertz for the past few days. Fang Ping had not cultivated much because the 4 of them were crammed into one room. He had only taken the time to practice his stance. Fang Ping's vitality recovery speed had increased because he had consumed a vitality pill previously. He had been using the pill's energy and had not used much of his wealth. Right now, his wealth was close to 5 million. It was not just his wealth. Fang Ping calculated in his heart and suddenly realized that he was rich too. Currently, he had the following belongings: 18 blood and chi replenishing pills, 8 normal vitality pills, 5 rank, 1 vitality pills, 1 rank, 1 bone honing pill, and 1 viscera shielding pill. Other than that, too, 39 million in cash and a duplex at Scenic Lake Gardens. According to the market price, Fang Ping's net worth was more than 7 million. Martial artists are all rich. Fang Ping sighed again. Fang Ping sighed again. His main source of wealth was Huang Bin and Jean Kemming. One of them was rank 2 and the other rank 3. He did not even take their total assets. Huang Bin aside, Jean Kemming's 2 million was not a big deal. Just like that, these people could easily fork out a few million. Martial artist. I'm almost there, Fang Ping sighed. If Wu Zhihao and the others had not been around and it was not convenient for him to cultivate the methods of honing, Fang Ping felt that he could have reached 150 calories. Reaching 150 calories meant that martial artists were ready. The only difference was whether it was one breakthrough or a few breakthroughs. I wonder if old Wang would be shocked if he knew the results of my vitality test. Fang Ping suddenly had this thought. He really wanted to know how Wang Jinyang would react when he found out about the results. Every martial arts university was paying close attention to the martial sciences exam. Perhaps that fellow already knew about it? Nanjiang Martial Arts University. In previous years, the martial arts universities would have placed great importance on the martial sciences physical assessment. The Martial Arts Society was the most powerful society among the martial arts students. Naturally, they would also pay attention to some of the good seedlings who might be recruited. Fang Ping guessed that Wang Jinyang might have known the result. This was inevitable in the past. However, Wang Jinyang was not in the mood to care about that. The Martial Arts Society building. In the conference hall, While the results of the physical examination were being announced, the martial arts club was having a meeting. The atmosphere of the meeting was solemn and tense. The host of the meeting was not the president of the martial arts club, nor was it Wang Jinyang. Instead, it was a gentle-looking man in his 40s. The refined man looked relatively thin, but his limbs were slender. Looking around, there were not many people in the conference room. After a while, the refined man said, "Other than Zhou Zhou and Fang Wenhui, who couldn't return to school due to a mission, everyone else is here." After saying that, the refined man looked at a handsome guy sitting below and smiled faintly. "Shen Quan, you're graduating next month. You don't have to attend." Shen Quan had a bright smile on his face. He shook his head lightly. "Teacher Zhang, I'm the president of the Martial Arts Society. Even if I'm not, I'm from Sichuan. It's the same even if I graduate. I have to participate in this mission. Maybe when the mission is over, I'll be able to break through to rank 4 and graduate as a middle-ranked martial artist." Zhang Qingnan, the refined man, nodded slightly and did not try to persuade him. After a pause, the smile on Zhang Qingnan's face disappeared. He said solemnly, "Nanjiang Martial Arts University has 4,600 martial sciences students. Among them, 16 have reached rank 3, other than Zhou Zhou and Fang Wenhui who aren't here, and a few seniors who have already left school. The remaining 11 are here. Everyone should understand how dangerous it is for all of you to go on a mission together." In the corner, Wang Jinyang smiled and said, "Instructor, just tell us about the mission. We're not kids anymore. We're all rank 3 martial artists. We know what to do." Zhang Qingnan glanced at him and laughed. "That's true. I'll cut to the chase then. Recently, there's been some movement at the Sichuan catacombs entrance. The local garrison has suffered heavy casualties. Southwest Military Region, Southwest Martial Arts University, and Sichuan Martial Arts University have gathered a group of elites and are heading to the catacombs entrance to suppress the movement. However, the situation is still very bad. Southwest has no choice but to ask for help from other places. Everyone should know that the elites sent by Southwest Military Region, Southwest Martial Arts University, and Sichuan Martial Arts University are not weaklings. Even so, they still have to ask for help. This shows how dangerous the mission is. Nanjiang has also accepted the mission. Governor General Zhang will personally lead a team to Sichuan Martial Arts University. As for Nanjiang Martial Arts University, I will also lead a group of instructors and students to the Sichuan catacombs entrance to rescue them. My original plan was for the instructors to go. However, the Vice-Chancellor meant that you're all rank 3 martial artists and no longer kids. You need to shoulder the responsibility that you should. Therefore, you will also participate in this rescue mission. Of course, it's not mandatory. According to the rules, those who participate in the mission will receive a matching reward. Those who don't want to participate will sign a confidentiality agreement. You can withdraw now." None of the 11 people present made a move. Wang Jinyang spoke again. "Martial artists must fight. It's a crisis, but it's also an opportunity. Instructor, they're already here. Don't keep them in suspense. Who would give up?" Also, Wang Jinyang suddenly laughed. "Also, if we really don't participate, Governor General Zhang will personally lead the team. How are we going to survive in Nanjiang in the future?" Zhang Qingnan did not know whether to laugh or cry. He said helplessly, "You talk too much." However, this time Governor General Zhang is personally leading the team. It's indeed an opportunity for everyone. Since no one wants to withdraw, everyone should prepare. Prepare the pills and weapons. If there's a shortage, apply for them later. Time is tight. We'll leave this afternoon. Everyone, the greater the power, the greater the responsibility. Your sacrifice has brought social stability and prosperity to the country. At the same time, you will also benefit from it. With the privilege of being superior to others, your relatives, friends, and family will also benefit. Nothing comes without a reason. If you don't contribute and I don't contribute, we wouldn't be where we are now. These are all cliches. I don't want to say more. I just want to tell you that if you really sacrifice yourselves, the country will treat your family well. Teacher Zhang, can't you say something auspicious? Someone in the crowd chuckled. Hearing you say that, we're all in a bad mood. Everyone understands the logic. It's not like they're forcing us to participate. If we don't want more resources and don't want to become stronger, we can choose not to participate. We want to benefit, but we don't want to contribute. We still want to enjoy special privileges. How can there be such a good thing? Also, with you around, our safety is guaranteed, Zhang Qingnan chuckled. Of course. I'll do my best to let all the students come back with me. Then that's settled. Wang Jinyang stood up and said as he walked, I'll go back and prepare. I don't know how long it will take. I hope it's short. Otherwise, it'll cause delays. Teacher, I'll be leaving too, the crowd dispersed. Zhang Qingnan did not mind. After everyone had left, Zhang Qingnan muttered, Don't worry. I'll bring all of you back. Fang Ping was completely unaware of what was happening at Nanjiang Martial Arts University. During this period, Fang Ping had been busy with the martial sciences exams and had not been able to attend to many things. This included thinking about some major events in the past. Many things had changed because of the existence of martial artists, and Fang Ping had not had the time to think about them recently. In the afternoon, while Wang Jinyang and the others were rushing to Sichuan, Fang Ping was also seeing Zhang Hao and the others off. Compared to the calm and collected attitude of Wang Jinyang and the other elite martial artists, the students who had failed in the martial sciences exams were more tragic. The sobbing in front of the hotel did not stop. Although Zhang Hao did not cry, his face was pale. Zhang Nan's eyes were already red. He hugged Lu Ruoqi and said with reddened eyes, Ruoqi, you'll definitely pass. Yang Jian, don't drop the ball. If you do well in the other subjects, you'll definitely get into a martial arts university. Zhang Hao also wished Yang Jian well. Unlike Fang Ping and Wu Zhihao, these two had high vitalities, especially Fang Ping. Even if he did slightly worse in cultural studies, he would still be accepted by schools. Yang Jian and Lu Ruoqi, on the other hand, would not be able to get into a martial arts university unless they did extremely well in other subjects. Everyone said their goodbyes. Soon, the eliminated students boarded the bus and left slowly. The martial sciences exams had nothing to do with them anymore. Wu Zhihao watched them leave and said unhappily, I feel terrible. Sometimes I really don't understand why they have to be so strict. Why do they have to make the hierarchy obvious? If it wasn't so obvious, everyone wouldn't have to rush in. Fang Ping was speechless. There were some things that he did not know. Ignorance is bliss. It's not necessarily a bad thing to leave crying now. What's wrong with living a peaceful life, marrying a wife and having children, being happy and healthy? They envy the privileged classes, but they don't know that sometimes we envy them too. At the same time, in the best hotel suite in Serenity District, Chief Luo stood on the balcony and sighed. Behind him, Jean Kemming stood with his back hunched, not daring to speak. Chief Luo glanced at him and said lightly, You're lucky this time, but this is the only time. Normal people enjoy less and give less. We're different, especially official martial artists like us. We gain more, so we have to give more. Next year, if auspicious Sun City's martial arts education environment does not improve greatly, you should know the consequences. Also, Chief Luo paused and said, Be careful. There are signs of earthquake in Sichuan. As one of the entrances to the catacombs, the earthquake has already spread to the ground. It's not a small problem. Some bastards like to come out and stir up trouble at this time. Rumors of the end of the world in 2012 continue to spread. Sichuan may be in big trouble. Although Nanjiang is far from Sichuan, we still have to guard against it. There will be a notice from the top soon. Although auspicious Sun City has the military department and the Department of Investigation Services, The Department of Education cannot let their guard down. Be prepared to exterminate them at any time. If it affects normal people and disrupts social order, the consequences are not something you and I can bear. Jean Kemming paled and said quickly, "Understood." Chapter 62. Auspicious Sun City. After the students who failed the physical assessment left, the hotel rooms became much more empty. Fong Ping and the other students who passed were finally given their own rooms. They did not have to squeeze together anymore. Fong Ping finally had the chance to cultivate the methods of honing after being given a room to himself. In the room, Fong Ping closed the door and cultivated the methods of honing while maintaining his stance. As his body swayed slightly, Fong Ping's bones crackled softly. If a martial artist was beside him, they would understand that this was the result of completing the preliminary honing of his bones. The foundation of becoming a martial artist was to complete the preliminary honing of his bones. After that, his vitality could be increased to more than 150 calories, which in turn nourished his body. Soon, he could choose to break through and become a true martial artist. Half an hour later, the methods of honing cultivation was over. Fong Ping retracted his stance and stood upright. He moved his arms and legs slightly, and a crisp sound came from his bones again. At that moment, Fong Ping could clearly feel that his bones were constantly absorbing vitality. Is this the sign of completing the preliminary honing of bones? Fong Ping remembered that the basic cultivation methods mentioned that after the preliminary honing of bones was completed, the biggest sign was that the bones could autonomously increase the speed at which they interacted with their internal and external organs. Some people called it the bones began to breathe. Usually, human bones could also interact with the vitality in the body, just like breathing. However, most people could not detect or feel this feeling. Once the preliminary honing of bones was completed, however, this bones breathing characteristic would be more obvious, and people would be able to detect it. Completing the bone honing means that my body can now withstand a stronger vitality. Fong Ping had been stuck at 149 calories for a few days. To others, this was a short period of time. To Fong Ping, however, it was not a short period of time. In the past, it would have been enough for him to increase his vitality by 7 or 8 cal. He had consumed a vitality pill last time. Vitality pills had the effect of condensing vitality, and Fong Ping could feel that he could increase his vitality in the past few days. Now that the bone honing was complete, the data in Fong Ping's vision changed. Wealth for 895000 vitality, 146 calories, 152 calories, mentality, 168 hertz, 175 hertz. Ha! Fong Ping was surprised. This cultivation did not consume much vitality, but the upper limit had increased a lot. He had thought that it would be the same as usual. It was very likely that it would only increase by 1 calorie. Unexpectedly, the upper limit had increased by 3 calories compared to before. After completing the initial tempering of his bones, the amount of blood energy he could contain was much greater than before. Does that mean I can choose to break through at any time? As long as his vitality reached 150 calories and his bone honing was complete, he could take the pill to trigger a vitality outburst, allowing his vitality to flow through more meridians. If a rank one chose to hone their upper limbs, they would have to clear the meridians in both arms. If he wanted to temper his lower limbs, he would have to clear the meridians in his legs and feet. Previously, the methods of honing only allowed one to clear the main meridians and undergo the initial tempering. The breakthrough was to clear more minor meridians. This way, he could temper his bones and blood vessels more carefully and thoroughly. Similarly, the risk of clearing minor meridians was greater. This was also why Wang Jinong and the others said that it was best to have a rank for martial artists to protect them when they were breaking through. I'm honing my lower limbs at rank 1, which means that I need to clear more meridians in my lower limbs when I break through. I still don't know much about this vein. It's too risky to make a breakthrough rashly. Fong Ping's understanding of himself was not deep enough. If he were to break through now, he could very well cripple himself. Moreover, he still remembered from the notes in the book that 150 calories was just a normal person's limit. His vitality limit had easily broken through 150 calories and was now at 152 calories. Naturally, Fong Ping would not choose to break through now. I can still continue to hone my bones and strengthen my vitality to feed back to my flesh. It'll be much easier to hone my body in the future. Fong Ping thought about his upcoming cultivation as he washed the dirt off his body. Besides, his vitality was strong now, and his bones were tougher than normal people's. Could it be time to practice some basic moves? Martial artists were not only strong in their vitality, but also in their combat strength. Before becoming a martial artist, very few people would choose to cultivate moves, focusing on increasing their vitality and nourishing their bones and flesh. Time was tight for aspiring martial artists at this time. Increasing their vitality, honing their bones, nourishing their flesh, cultivating pole standing, taking cultural classes, these things alone were enough to keep them busy. Not many people had the time to cultivate offensive techniques while they were still aspiring martial artists. Fong Ping was different. His vitality increased quickly, and he did not have to accumulate it slowly like the others. Among the books that Wang Jinyang had given him last time were basic fist techniques, basic leg techniques, and summary of cold weapons. These were books that involved actual combat. However, these techniques were troublesome to cultivate without guidance. The reason why Fong Ping wanted to cultivate basic moves at this time had something to do with Huangbin. For many students, society was still relatively stable, and there was no opportunity for them to fight. Fong Ping was worried, though. What if he met someone like Huangbin again? Vitality alone was not enough. Without actual combat ability, no matter how high his vitality was, he would still be beaten up. Right now, his vitality was very high, and his pole standing also had some methods to fight his enemies. However, pole standing was not mainly offensive, so his methods were limited. As he thought about this, Fong Ping knew that he could not rush things. He had to take it one step at a time. After some thought, Fong Ping decided to give Old Wang a call. He had a lot of things to consult. Without Old Wang's guidance, he dared not act rashly. A few minutes later, Fong Ping hung up, speechless. He's not in the service area. Where did he go? He could not get through to Wang Jinyang's phone, which made Fong Ping feel helpless. He shook his head. Old Wang was not there, so he could only talk to Tan Jinping. At the cafe on the 3rd floor, Tan Jinping was surprised to hear Fong Ping's question. You're planning to break through after your vitality has exceeded 150 calories. Although Fong Ping did not say it explicitly, Tan Jinping was not stupid. He knew what Fong Ping was thinking. After some thought, Tan Jinping said, many people choose to break through when their vitality reaches 150 calories and they've completed the initial honing of their bones. Actually, it doesn't mean that they can't continue to cultivate their vitality. It's just not worth it. Not worth it. Fong Ping looked confused. Tan Jinping nodded. Yes, it's not worth it. Once your vitality exceeds 150 calories, if you don't choose to hone your bones, your vitality will increase very slowly and it'll be wasted. For example, if you take a vitality pill when your vitality is at 140 calories, it might increase your vitality by 1 calorie. When your vitality is above 150 calories, if you take a vitality pill, it might only increase your vitality, but it won't increase your upper limit. When that happens, you'll need to take a rank 1 vitality pill, which is too wasteful. Also, you'll need to continue honing your bones to increase your body's upper limit. If you don't open minor vessels and rely on the main vessels to hone your bones, the results won't be very good. The best way is to take a bone honing pill to hone your bones. How much does a bone honing pill cost? Most of the time, it's not that people don't want to increase their vitality, it's that they can't. Most of the time, you need a rank 1 vitality pill and a rank 1 bone honing pill to increase your vitality above 150 calories. The market price of these 2 pills is 300,000 and 500,000 respectively. If you take a pill worth 800,000, you might only be able to increase your vitality by 1 to 2 calories or 3 to 5 calories at most. How many people would dare to be so wasteful and waste a lot of time? Seeing that Fang Ping was still deep in thought, Tan Jinping said, "Yes, when you're an aspiring martial artist, the higher your vitality's upper limit is, the easier it will be to cultivate in the future, and your potential will be greater than others. In comparison, however, more people are willing to break through to martial artist first. That's because the time and resources you waste as an aspiring martial artist can be used by martial artists who choose to break through. When you break through to rank 1, others may break through to rank 2. Even if your vitality is strong at rank 1 and you can fight for a long time, you're still far behind a rank 2. That's why I said it's not worth it." Fang Ping understood, but he was different from others. He could use his wealth to make up for Tan Jinping's concerns. "Uncle Tan, if aspiring martial artists continue to increase their upper limit, what's the highest they can achieve under normal circumstances?" Tan Jinping saw that he was not giving up, so he stopped trying to persuade him. Young people were all like that. They all felt that they were unique. If they continued to persuade him, he might even think that you were harming him and be jealous of him. Moreover, the fact that Fang Ping could reach his upper limit at this time meant that Wang Jinyang had given him a lot of support and that he was talented and hardworking enough. Persuasion alone was useless for these kinds of people to achieve greater prospects. It varies from person to person. I don't know much about this. When I was in a martial arts training class, someone raised his vitality to the upper limit of 159 calories. That was only in a martial arts training class. In martial arts universities, some people come from rich families and have enough talent, so their vitality might be higher. However, there's a threshold after every 9, and the higher you go, the harder it gets. What's the average vitality of a rank 1 martial artist? If it's in the beginning stage of rank 1, the increase isn't that high. It mainly depends on the progress of bone honing. Like me, after I've honed my lower limbs, my vitality can reach 250 calories at its peak. For beginners, 170 to 180 is the normal range. If it reaches 200 calories and above, it'll need to reach a certain stage of bone honing. Fang Ping nodded again and asked some general questions about cultivation. Finally, Fang Ping asked about the combat techniques. Tan Jinping shook his head and reminded him, "If you're not a martial artist yet, I suggest that you don't cultivate combat techniques. It's a waste of time. Moreover, it's a peaceful era now. Even if you become a martial artist, there are people who don't cultivate combat techniques at all. They only hone their bones and nurture their vitality." Fang Ping was stunned. Did Tan Jinping mean that many martial artists were just for show? However, his words were different from what Wang Jinyang had said. He and Wang Jinyang had communicated a few times. Wang Jinyang had once said that martial artists should focus on actual combat. Things like ranks were all auxiliary. If it was only based on ranks, Brother Ma would have just shown his rank when he broke through to rank 8. There was no need for him to fight Tam. Could this be the boundary caused by different perspectives? Tan Jinping had graduated from the martial arts training class and was a casual martial artist. Later, he used his identity as a martial artist to get an official position in Sun City. However, he had been stuck at rank 1 for so many years. In Sun City, he did not have the chance to fight. Even if some martial artists committed crimes, it was the Department of Investigation Services mission. Tan Jinping might not have been lying when he said there was no need to learn combat techniques. Maybe he really thought so. Although Fang Ping listened, he did not take it seriously. He did not want to be just for show. Ever since he saw the battle scene left behind by 2 grandmasters, Fang Ping was very interested in becoming a human RPG himself. However, looking at Tan Jinping's expression, he was not interested in combat techniques. Fang Ping did not ask further. This deputy director might not know how to cultivate combat techniques. Originally, Fang Ping had thought that he could get some pointers from him. Now he decided not to mention it. I'll ask old Wang later. In Fang Ping's eyes, Wang Jinyang was much more reliable than Tan Jinping. Not only was the guy rank 3, but he was also very indifferent when he killed people. Even if Fang Ping had not seen this kind of person's combat ability, he should know that he was not weak. Otherwise, old Wang would not have dared to go after Huang Bin alone when he was peak rank 2. After chatting with Tan Jinping for a while, Fang Ping thanked him and parted ways. Seeing that Fang Ping had paid the bill, Tan Jinping smiled and did not stand on ceremony. However, he could tell that Fang Ping did not take his words seriously. His ambition is really high. Tan Jinping sighed softly, but he was not angry. If he had reached the standard of a peak aspiring martial artist before entering a martial arts university, he would probably think even more. After returning to the hotel room, Fang Ping called Wang Jinyang again. However, he was still not in the service area. Fang Ping was a little depressed. What was old Wang doing? He actually wanted to ask how high old Wang's vitality had been when he was an aspiring martial artist, so he could have a reference standard. However, he could not get through to Wang Jinyang. Fang Ping had no choice but to ask him in a few days. He had just broken through to 152 calories anyway, so it was still early. Chapter 63. Over the next few days, Fang Ping continued to cultivate his vitality while waiting for the practical test to arrive. At the same time, he began to read the general studies exam materials seriously. Halfway through, Fang Ping had also called old Wang a few times, but he could not get through. Fang Ping considered that old Wang might have gone to do something like chasing after Huang Bin, so he did not continue the fight. Right now, his vitality was still growing steadily. It had not reached the point where it couldn't grow anymore, so there was no need to worry about it for the time being. In the blink of an eye, as Fang Ping cultivated and read, it was the 7th, May 7th. The practical test began. Compared to the physical examination, there were much fewer people taking the practical test. There were more than 10,000 students from auspicious Sun City who had registered for the martial sciences examination. After going through the political background check and physical examination, only about 1,000 of them had made it to the practical exam. City Stadium. Although Wu Zhihao did not completely relax, he was still much more relaxed than before. While waiting for the exam, Wu Zhihao chuckled and said, "Actually, as long as your vitality isn't too low and you rely on taking medicine to replenish it, it won't be difficult for you to pass the practical test if you keep training." Yang Jian was also relatively confident. With a face full of smiles, he said, "It shouldn't be a problem for me to pass this test. But not only do you have to pass, you have to pass with the best results. Only then will you have a chance of getting into a martial arts university." His vitality wasn't too high, so he could only add points to other events. Martial arts universities did not simply look at one's vitality when they recruited students. Of course, vitality accounted for a higher proportion. According to past practice, vitality accounted for at least 50%, 25% for cultural subjects, 15% for specialized subjects, and 10% for practical tests. However, there was also a foundation. For example, one's vitality had to reach a certain standard. The same went for cultural classes. At this time, the better they did in other subjects, the more schools they could choose from. They were confident. Fang Ping did not feel guilty either. The practical test was not a competition of actual combat. High school students did not have such a test. The main part of the test was still about his stamina. His vitality was over 150 calories, and his stance was stable. His stamina was extraordinary. He didn't really care about the practical test. Among the students in class 4, Lu Ruoqi was a girl. She had a slight advantage over the boys during the practical test but it was limited. At that moment, Lu Ruachi was not in the mood to talk. Her vitality was the lowest, 1 calorie lower than Yang Jian's. She needed to do exceptionally well in the upcoming exams to have any hope of entering a martial arts university. However, she had always been a taciturn person, so no one cared if she spoke or not. The exam was about to begin. The first event was the 3000 M track and field test. There was a minimum requirement. The men's 3,000-meter sprint had to be completed within 10 minutes. Exceeding 10 minutes would result in immediate elimination. On the other hand, the time limit for women was 12 minutes. The shorter the time taken, the better the final result, which would be added to the total score of the martial sciences exam. This requirement wasn't high, but it wasn't low either. For ordinary people, this was the standard for national third-class athletes. However, those who entered the practical assessment all had at least 112 calories vitality, which was much more abundant than the average person. Under such circumstances, as long as he kept training, it wouldn't be difficult to achieve this result. Fang Ping and the others were not the first batch to be tested, but they had watched a few rounds from the sidelines. There weren't too many people who could enter the practical test, of course. It was not that there were none. After a few rounds, more than 300 people were tested, and there were still more than 20 people who were eliminated. Relatively speaking, it was not a small number. There weren't many who sympathized with these inferior goods. With such high vitality and passing the physical examination, it meant that there was nothing wrong with his body. As long as one's body wasn't sick, it wouldn't be difficult for them to pass the test if they continued to train. Nope, or else I'm not in a good state. Otherwise, it was purely taking drugs to get there. Although people didn't say anything about it, they were envious and jealous of those who took drugs. Now that he was eliminated, everyone was happy to see it. He even hoped that more students would be eliminated. That way, students with lower vitality would have a chance of getting into a martial arts university. Soon, it was Fang Ping and the others' turn. Yang Jian was the first to go. He might be big, but he wasn't clumsy. When the results came out, Yang Jian ran 9:08, which was the standard of a second-class athlete. The second was Fang Ping. Fang Ping's long-distance running time was not as long as Yang Jian and the others. It could also be said that he had taken drugs to get there. However, his vitality was too high, his bones were honed, and his pole standing had reached the stable stance. With this kind of all-round improvement, even if he did not train as long as the others, he still managed to run 8:25. Wu Zhihao and the others looked at him with envy, jealousy, and hatred. Fang Ping, on the other hand, did not care about these things. He was just a little emotional. If the world records from his past life were placed in this life, they would be broken by martial artists in minutes. Even he himself could break the world record if he trained for a while longer and unleashed all his vitality while running. Not long after that, it was Wu Zhihao and the others' turn. They passed easily as well. Lu Ruachi ran with all her might. In the end, she, a girl, actually managed to run less than 10 minutes. In reality, the girls who could enter this stage were not weak. Fang Ping realized that most of the eliminated people were boys. On the contrary, there were not many girls. After the run, Fang Ping participated in the pull-ups, sit-ups, and a few other events. To Fang Ping, these events were easy. It was the same for most of the others. The atmosphere was much more relaxed than during the physical assessment. The test that started at 9 in the morning only ended after 12 o'clock. Once out of the gymnasium, Wu Zhihao said casually, "After this, it's all about writing. It's all about the brain, not vitality and brute force. Boorish people have an advantage in the first 2 stages. It's our advantage after this." Fang Ping noticed that he was looking at him as he spoke. His expression darkened. Boorish people don't like to use their brains. They like to use their fists. Do you want to try? Wu Zhihao laughed dryly. Forget it. I won't try. Cultured people use their words, not their fists. The few of them joked for a while. Wu Zhihao was in a good mood and insisted on treating them. The others did not stand on ceremony. They were all students, so they did not care about the quality of the food. They picked a small private restaurant and ordered a few dishes. The few of them chatted as they waited for the dishes to be served. At this time, the television hanging on the wall of the restaurant was broadcasting the news. Fong Ping did not pay attention to it at first, but his attention was quickly drawn. Due to the movement of the Indian Ocean Plate, the Eurasian Plate is being squeezed. Grandmaster-level martial artists have issued a warning in northwest Sichuan. In the near future, there may be an earthquake disaster in northwest Sichuan. The government has already arranged for people to evacuate. Fong Ping was stunned. He had almost forgotten about this. Or rather, the appearance of martial artists made him feel that this world was different from the previous one. He had subconsciously thought that these things might not happen. He did not expect that things might not have changed, but the outcome would be completely different. Grandmaster-level powerhouses could actually warn in advance. After being stunned for a while, Fong Ping suddenly felt more relaxed. It was good to have non-humans. These non-humans could even sense the natural disasters. Evacuating in advance might cause property damage, but at least there would be no more casualties. Fong Ping was shocked, but Wu Zhihao and the others were not surprised. Yang Jian glanced at the television and said casually, "The number of earthquakes these few years seems to have increased. It's not just our country. It's the same in other countries. It's a good thing that our country's grandmasters can warn in advance. People are fine, but the economic losses are not small every time." Wu Zhihao added, "It's quite a lot, but sometimes it's not very accurate. There are times when the predictions are wrong. A few years ago, I heard that there was also a grandmaster in Magic City who predicted that there would be an earthquake. In the end, I heard that more than 20 grandmaster powerhouses went and there were no earthquakes in the end. I wonder if the grandmaster who made the wrong prediction was beaten up by the grandmasters who came to help." Wu Zhihao lowered his voice as he said the last sentence. He did not dare to say it out loud. It was fine to slander grandmasters behind their backs, as long as no one knew about it. However, this was only between close friends. It was best not to mention this kind of topic among strangers. Yang Jian heard that and chuckled. Our Sino nation's grandmasters are really responsible. Whenever there is an earthquake or other disaster, they're the first to rush to help. Sometimes when I think about it, this is probably the bearing of a grandmaster. Their awareness is not something we can compare to. That's true. Grandmasters are unpredictable. The few of them chatted casually. Fong Ping, on the other hand, was slightly surprised. Every time there is a disaster, the grandmasters will personally go to help. Not every time, but most of the time when there is a disaster, the grandmasters will usually go to help if they can. That's why every time there is a disaster, there are these VIPs to comfort the people. Even if there is a disaster, everyone is not too worried. When Wu Zhihao said this, he was rather proud and respectful. He admired these grandmasters' sense of social responsibility, admired their love, and was proud that these people were Sino Nation's grandmasters. The few of them chatted casually. Fong Ping felt a little strange, but he did not think too much about it. He could only say that the grandmasters of this generation were indeed extraordinary. To be called grandmasters, it was clear that they did not rely solely on martial arts. While Fong Ping and the others were watching the news, Auspicious Sun City government. In the conference room, a few of Auspicious Sun City's higher-ups were having a meeting. In the conference room, the old man sitting in the middle said, slowly, "Sichuan has started to evacuate the people. This means that the situation is not too good, and they might not be able to suppress it. Even if they can suppress it, they will need to recruit many high-end martial artists to hold the fort. Every time this happens, some evil spirits will jump out to fan the flames and destroy social order. This time, Governor General Zhang personally led a team to Sichuan and brought many elite martial artists with him. Although Nanjiang was not the main target of these people's destruction, they still had to take precautions. The Department of Investigation Services and the Public Security Bureau had taken precautions. The probability of those clowns coming to auspicious Sun City to wreak havoc was not high, but they had to take precautions. Recently, all personnel who went out had to carry firearms. Also, the propaganda front must be strictly guarded. We must not allow these people to mislead the public and disturb the hearts of the people. It's fine with traditional media, but when it comes to the internet, although the higher-ups will monitor it and the major platforms will cooperate with the government, some of the local forums in auspicious Sun City must also be monitored. Once we find any harmful comments, we will remove them immediately and trace the location. The Department of Investigation Services will cooperate with the Internet Surveillance Department at any time. Everyone in the conference room nodded. The old man thought for a moment and said, "Also, the martial sciences exams are not over yet. The general studies exams will only be held on the 10th. At this time, many of this year's outstanding candidates have gathered in auspicious Sun City. These young people are the seeds of future martial artists. If something happens to them, it will be a greater loss than if something happens to us. The Department of Investigation Services will send some people to protect them in secret. They will withdraw after the exams are over. As for the military department, I will inform them and ask for their cooperation." The old man gave instructions and announced the end of the meeting. After everyone had left, the old man rubbed his temples. Although he knew that he should not have thought about it, the old man still hoped that those clowns would not come to auspicious Sun City, even if they wanted to wreak havoc. They should go somewhere else. Auspicious Sun City's economy and military strength were not developed. Sometimes it was difficult for auspicious Sun City to suppress those who wreaked havoc. As he thought about it, the old man began to grumble. Once Governor General Zhang broke through to rank 7, he became restless and restless. If Governor General Zhang did not leave this time, Nanjiang would not have to worry too much. However, not only did Governor General Zhang leave, he also took many elites with him. Even in auspicious Sun City, many elites from the military department were transferred away. Chapter 64. At night, in the hotel restaurant, Fang Ping was talking on his phone while eating. Fang Yuan chirped excitedly on the phone. "Fang Ping, if you don't come back soon, I'll finish all the snacks at home. Also, do you still want your old textbooks? I'm going to cut out your name on the first page and sell it as your autograph. We'll split them in half after I sell them, okay?" "Oh," Zhang Ling said she'll introduce her sister to you. You just have to take care of her. Also, can you go home on the 10th? It's Saturday. How about I go to Rayong to look for you? It's so boring at home. If you don't come back soon, I won't treat you to KFC." The girl was the only one talking. Her parents only said a few words at the beginning, and the phone could not be taken away from her once it was in her hands. Fang Ping did not respond much. In fact, he could not even get a word in edgewise. Everything was said by the girl alone. When she was tired and panting, Fang Ping smiled and said, "All right, I'll go home in a few days. I'll bring you good food and fun things." "Good food?" Fang Yuan was excited again. What good food? After that, it was Fang Yuan's whole show. By the time she was done talking to herself, Fang Ping had already finished his meal. Fang Ping smiled and said after a while, "Got it. Listen to your parents at home. I'm hanging up now." He did not give the girl a chance to nag anymore and quickly hung up the phone. After he hung up, Wu Zhihao teased, "I think I heard something. Your sister wants to introduce you to a girlfriend? Are you jealous?" "I'm jealous." Wu Zhihao was speechless. Was this how a normal person would react? "Shouldn't you be angry and deny it immediately when I said that?" Fang Ping did not care if he was upset or not. He stood up and said, "We're going to the supermarket tomorrow. Do you want to go?" "Why are we going to the supermarket?" "Buy something to take home. Study hard for the next 2 days. We'll go home straight after the general studies exams." He had been away for almost 10 days. Fang Ping wanted to finish his exams quickly and go home as soon as possible. Wu Zhihao did not object. He nodded and said, Sure, let's go together tomorrow. I'll buy something too. I don't have enough socks, Fong Ping said disdainfully. Do you still have enough underwear? When this guy came, he brought a box of clothes with him to change into. He didn't wash the dirty clothes. After changing, he put them in a bag and prepared to bring them home. According to Wu Zhihao, time was precious during the exam period, so they couldn't waste it on washing clothes. They had to cherish every minute and every second. Wu Zhihao was not the only one who did this. Fong Ping despised people like that as much as he could. Although he was prepared to not do the laundry for the next few days and throw it to Fong Yuan when he got home, the girl would probably happily do the laundry after receiving the benefits. Fong Ping felt that he was giving Fong Yuan a benefit in disguise. It was a great sibling bond. Wu Zhihao didn't mind his teasing. He laughed and said, I have enough underwear. I brought 10. Shameless. I learned it from you. The two of them exchanged a few words before Wu Zhihao tilted his head and asked Yang Jian, Yang Jian, are you going? I'm not going. I haven't finished reviewing my professional materials. I'm so nervous. Yang Jian shook his head. His cultural knowledge was much worse than Wu Zhihao's. Even Fong Ping was better than him now. Fong Ping's professional knowledge was passable. On one hand, his mentality was strong enough, and his ability to understand and remember was strong. On the other hand, it was because Fong Ping had cultivated the methods of honing and pole standing. The professional knowledge was meant to help students deepen their understanding of martial artists. While Fong Ping cultivated, he also deepened his understanding of the professional knowledge. It was equivalent to doing practical work. Although the time was short, his professional knowledge was not worse than anyone else's. True knowledge came from practice. Most students relied on rote memorization, but Fong Ping cultivated and understood at the same time, so it was easier for him to remember. Yang Jian did not go, and Wu Zhihao did not invite Lu Ruoqi either. Lu Ruoqi was more hardworking than Yang Jian recently. She went to her room to read once they reached the hotel and did not even come out for dinner. After making arrangements with Fong Ping to go out the next morning, the few of them returned to their respective rooms. The next day, Century Lianhua Supermarket. Wu Zhihao watched as Fong Ping threw everything he saw into the shopping cart like it was free. He asked eagerly, How much money did you bring? Did Fong Ping strike it rich? As far as he knew, Fong Ping's family was not that rich, was it? Did Wang Jinyang even give him pocket money? Mother asterisk Kerr. What was the relationship between them? Not much, a few million. Wu Zhihao felt like he had been cheated again, and his expression was indignant. Fong Ping pursed his lips. I already said I'm an honest man, but some people just don't believe me. I can't do anything about it. He only had 38 million left in his account, and about 10,000 in cash on hand. A few million should not be a lie, right? Wu Zhihao did not bother to ask any more. He picked what he wanted, but when he saw Fong Ping holding a bunch of snacks, he could not help but say, It's best if we don't eat snacks now. It's not healthy. We should eat something that replenishes vitality. It's okay. My vitality is more than 150 calories. A few snacks won't affect me. Few. Wu Zhihao felt a little tired. What's wrong with my head? Shopping with this guy. After that, Fong Ping did not stop even when his shopping cart was full. Wu Zhihao's shopping cart was also stuffed full, and only then did he reluctantly stop. He paid at the cashier and spent more than 3,000 on the shopping cart. Wu Zhihao could not help but feel envy, jealousy, and hatred as he watched Fong Ping pay without blinking an eye. 3,000 was quite valuable in this day and age. His family was well off, but his martial sciences exam had cost him a lot. He had brought 3,000 with him this time, and he had spent almost 1,000 in the past few days. Wu Zhihao could not afford to buy so many things in one go. When he thought about what Fong Ping had said about bringing a few million, Wu Zhihao shook his head hard. I'd be an idiot if I believed him. The two of them left the supermarket with their shopping bags but they were stopped by someone the moment they stepped out of the door. The person who stopped them was a bespectacled, middle-aged man. He did not look like a bad guy, nor did he look like an idiot. However, Fang Ping and Wu Zhihao were speechless when he spoke. The devil descends, and the true gods save the world. 2012, the end of the world. Only the true gods can save the world. Join us and become our brothers. There was a hint of fanaticism in the middle-aged man's tone. Without waiting for Fang Ping and Wu Zhihao to reply, he continued, "Natural disasters and earthly disasters are all punishments the devil descends upon the world. Only the true gods, Fang Ping and Wu Zhihao, took a detour. Although such people were rare, they were not non-existent. In his past life, Fang Ping had sometimes met such people on the streets. Sometimes one could even see the propaganda of these people on the coins. They were a group of people who were not very clear-headed. It was best not to interact with such people. If they did, there was no telling what kind of trouble they would cause if they pestered them. Fang Ping had always kept a respectful distance from such lunatics. The man behind him did not bother him either. He continued to preach about the true gods to the next passerby who exited the supermarket. Wu Zhihao was about to speak when he felt a gust of wind in front of him. Two silhouettes ran past him at lightning speed. Fang Ping had sensed it earlier than him. He held the bags in one hand and prepared to fight back with the other. However, it was not a robbery as he had imagined. The two people who ran past them ignored them completely. Soon, the middle-aged man's angry roar came from behind them. "You are blaspheming the true gods. The true gods will not forgive you when they descend. Sob, sob, sob." The middle-aged man was quickly restrained by the two men who had just rushed past him. His mouth was also gagged by one of them. Fang Ping turned his head and saw one of the tough-looking men say in a low voice, "We are the police. Did this person distribute any leaflets? If he did, don't keep them. Destroy them as soon as possible." The passers-by shook their heads when they heard that they were the police. The few passers-by who had been brainwashed by the middle-aged man laughed. "This kind of person should be arrested. He's like a lunatic. He almost scared my daughter. True gods? If a true god meets a grandmaster, he'll be slapped to death." "That's right. The country should abolish these religions," the passers-by discussed among themselves. They were all gloating over the middle-aged man's misfortune. No one asked which religion he was from. In this day and age, everyone worshipped martial artists and grandmasters. There were very few religious believers. Of course, not every religion was so neurotic. It was a small matter for the police to arrest someone. Soon, the crowd dispersed as the police left with the man. Fang Ping watched the police leave with the man and could not help but say, "How efficient!" In his past life, even if he had encountered such people, the police would not have arrested them. Even if they did, it would not have been easy to deal with them. He did not expect the police to be so responsible these days, arresting them directly. Fang Ping did not mind and continued walking to the hotel with Wu Zhihao. On the way, he encountered another arrest. The supermarket was not far from the hotel. Two people were arrested in such a short distance. Fang Ping was slightly surprised. These lunatics, why are they so crazy? When the second man was arrested, he shouted, "The devil has descended. The true God will save the world." His fanatical attitude almost made Fang Ping think that he had encountered a suicide bomber who was not afraid of death. In Sino Nation, such fanatics were rare, right? Wu Zhihao shook his head and did not pay much attention to them. Fang Ping had originally seen them as a spectator, but when he passed by the scene of the arrest, he frowned slightly. The plain-clothed man's vitality was too high. It seemed his vitality was higher than his. In other words, he was a martial artist, right? A martial artist arresting a preaching lunatic on the streets? Fang Ping frowned. Were Auspicious Sun's martial artists so worthless? He did not think too deeply about it. When he returned to the hotel, Fang Ping was surprised. In the hotel lobby, there was also a man with a higher vitality than him reading the newspaper. As if he had sensed Fong Ping's vitality, the man who was reading the newspaper leaped up nimbly. When he saw Fong Ping's expression, however, the man quickly sat down as if nothing had happened. Fong Ping frowned again. After some thought, he did not stay long and went upstairs. As soon as he left, the man who was reading the newspaper said softly, "I just encountered a student whose vitality was surging. Is there anyone in Auspicious Sun this year who has such a high vitality?" A voice came quickly from the invisible earpiece. "You're at the Sun City examinees checkpoint. I heard that there's a peak-aspiring martial artist in Sun City this year. No wonder. But it feels like he's not any weaker than me. How can a peak-aspiring martial artist's vitality be so strong?" The man muttered, but did not say anything else. The voice in the earpiece said again, "Be serious, everyone. You'll have to work hard these few days. Things are not looking good. Many people on the streets are preaching about the end of the world. They're all a bunch of lunatics. This has never happened in Auspicious Sun before. Everyone, don't be careless. Got it?" Chapter 65. After vomiting for a while, Fong Ping lifted his head to look at the bastard with tears in his eyes. He was not really crying. He could not hold it in when he vomited, and the tears flowed out on their own. He stared at others, and they stared back at him. Seeing Fong Ping lift his head with tears in his eyes, the square-jawed middle-aged man said apologetically, "I'm sorry for scaring you." "Don't cry. It's been resolved. I'm not crying." Fong Ping denied it immediately. "You're the one who's crying. Your whole family is crying." The man did not refute him. He should not have said those words. How could a young man be so traumatized? Although it was true that he had been beaten to tears, he still had to save face. He did not have to care about normal students. However, this student in front of him, who had not even become a martial artist, had tangled with a rank, one martial artist until now. He had a bright future ahead of him. People like him needed to be taken care of. If he said he was not crying, then he was not crying. Fong Ping was a little depressed at his expression. He did not say anything else and asked hurriedly, "Who are you?" "Department of Investigation Services." "Where are they?" Fong Ping tilted his head to look at the woman whose head had been blown off. He felt the urge to vomit again. "A bunch of lunatics who spread apocalyptic rhetoric," the man said simply. At that moment, a few more people came from behind. The man turned and said, "Bring them back." The woman had been killed with one punch. The man was lying motionless on the ground, but he was still breathing. He was probably still alive. The few people who came hurriedly began to clean up the scene. Fong Ping glanced at the woman again and turned his head slightly, not wanting to continue watching. As they cleaned up, the man apologized again. "I'm really sorry this time. How are your injuries?" "I'm fine." Just as he said that, Fong Ping felt a sharp pain in his arm. He sensed that his bones were not broken, but the pain was unbearable. Seeing Fong Ping inhale, the man said hurriedly, "Go to the hospital. We'll pay for all the expenses." Fong Ping moved his arm slightly. He did not reply, but asked, "Are the other students all right?" The man's expression turned cold. It was not directed at Fong Ping, but at the group of attackers. After some thought, the man sighed softly. A top student from Auspicious Sun No. 1 High School was stabbed with a dagger and sent to the hospital. 2 other students were injured as well. Another parent was seriously injured. At that time, the other party attacked his son, but this parent blocked the attack. Although no one died, the top student from No. 1 Middle School was seriously injured, and it was unknown if he could survive. The man continued. This time, these lunatics only sent out normal disciples. Auspicious Sun has been conducting a strict investigation over the past few days. They didn't bring any firearms. How many martial artists have come? Fong Ping suddenly interrupted him and asked. "1. Just now, the middle-aged man answered almost every question he had, as long as it did not involve confidential information. He told Fong Ping everything. After all, Fong Ping was the victim of an attack this time, and the victim was a prospective martial artist who was fighting a martial artist head-on. The corner of Fong Ping's mouth twitched. F***CK, I've only met one martial artist. What kind of luck is this? While Fong Ping was complaining, the man lamented. Fortunately, the other party chose to attack you. Fong Ping's expression darkened. What did that mean? So attacking me was the right thing to do? Perhaps realizing that his words were not pleasant to hear, the man changed the topic and said, Classmate, you should go to the hospital to have a checkup. Don't leave behind any hidden dangers. As for this incident, it's over now. We'll report it to the public once we've dealt with the aftermath. Fong Ping stood up and glanced at the woman who was being dragged away. He frowned slightly and said, It's over just like that. I don't have any intention of pursuing this matter, but I was attacked out of nowhere during an exam and almost died. You should at least give me an explanation for this, right? Classmate. The middle-aged man frowned slightly. After all, Fong Ping was not a martial artist yet. It would not do him any good to be too forceful with his words. Fong Ping interrupted him and looked at him. I know that you're from the Department of Investigation Services. You have a lot of power and strength. But I'm about to enter a martial arts university, and I have a big brother who's a rank 3 martial artist. This matter can't be settled just because of a lunatic attack, right? I saw it clearly. These 2 people obviously had their eyes on me. If they wanted to attack, they could have just randomly picked someone. In the end, they just had to pick me. That's not right, is it? Usually, Fong Ping would be glad to have one less thing to do. However, he had just thought it through. The woman did not say anything, but the man must have had his eyes on him since the beginning. There were so many students. It did not matter who they attacked. Why did they have to go after him? How could Fong Ping be at ease if he did not get to the bottom of this? When he heard that Fong Ping had a big brother who was a rank 3 martial artist, the man's expression changed. He said hesitantly, Your big brother, Nanjiang Martial Arts University's Wang Jinyang. Not by blood, but by blood. Fong Ping pulled out the tiger skin again. This guy would not ask old Wang, not to mention that he could not get through to old Wang's phone recently. Wang Jinyang, the man's expression changed again. After some thought, he said, How about this? You come with me to the Department of Investigation Services. When there's an answer, I'll talk to you in detail. Okay. Fong Ping could not care less about wasting time now. He was being hunted down for no reason, and there was even a martial artist involved. If the woman was not a dabbler, but someone like Huang Bin, he would have been beaten to death a long time ago. Fong Ping did not care about other things, but he cared about his life. At the very least, he had to find out who the people who attacked him were, why they attacked him, and whether there would be a next time, half an hour later, Auspicious Son Department of Investigation Services. The man who had brought him back had just left, saying that he had something to take care of. Fong Ping, on the other hand, was left in the office of the Deputy Director of the Department of Investigation Services. That person just now was the Deputy Director of Auspicious Son Department of Investigation Services. Fong Ping thought in hindsight. Fong Ping did not stop him since he wanted to take care of business. He minded his own business in the office, checking on his injuries. Although the woman was a dabbler, it was true that she had started honing the bones in her upper limbs. Fong Ping had taken quite a few punches. Although he had completed the initial honing and his bones were not broken, he had suffered some serious injuries. There were many dark, purple marks all over his body, especially his arms and right leg. Both his arms and his right leg were dark purple. His vitality flowed through his arms, alleviating some of the pain. After a while, a young woman knocked on the door and entered with a cup of tea. Seeing Fong Ping's arms, she asked quickly, Sir, do you need to go to the hospital? There's no need. Oh, right. He was about to ask when the man would be back when he remembered that he did not know the man's name. After a pause, Fong Ping asked, When will your deputy director come? Director Zhang is currently reporting to the director. Please wait for a while, Fong Ping nodded and asked, "Have you caught them?" "They've all been arrested and brought to justice. The students are no longer in danger." The young woman answered every question politely. She must not be an average person to be brought into the office by the director. This was the Department of Investigation Services. Average people could not enter. "Who are they?" Fong Ping asked again, seeing that she was easy to talk to. "I think they're followers of the creationists." "The creationists?" "Yes. They're a cult that preaches that the end of the world is coming and that they need a true God to create the world anew." "Then why did they attack the students?" The woman hesitated. She thought for a while before saying, "Actually, this cult has rarely been active in Nanjiang. I'm not too sure about their specific motives. However, this isn't the first time these cult members have attacked martial sciences candidates. Based on past reports, they might think that martial sciences candidates are martial artists in reserve, a privileged class in society. Attacking martial sciences candidates has a higher chance of success, so F***CK. Fong Ping cursed. What was this? Since when did he enjoy special privileges? This was an undeserved calamity, all right? If you're so capable, why don't you attack martial arts university students? Picking on the weak, huh? While Fong Ping was asking questions, the director's office, the director of the Department of Investigation Services, was having a headache. He hung up the phone and looked at Zhang Yong. "We'll have to appease the students. As for the media, we'll do what we usually do. This matter must be kept under wraps." Fortunately, no one died this time. We even killed a few of the creationists at the scene. The injured students must be appeased, especially the student from Auspicious Sun No. 1 High School. Fortunately, nothing serious happened. His father works in the government too. If someone died, we can't escape responsibility. Next, increase the patrol intensity and interrogate the remaining cultists. See if we can dig out any information. The districts and counties will also increase the patrol intensity. When Governor General Zhang returns, this matter should be over. Zhang Yong nodded quickly. He thought for a while and said awkwardly, "Director, it's fine for the others." But this time, one of the students who was attacked was a student from Sun City No. 1 High School. He was attacked by the missionary. His vitality was very high and he had a certain level of combat power. The missionary who was killed didn't have a high bone-honing level. When I arrived, the two of them were still fighting. Later, I killed the missionary. I wanted to appease him and the matter would be over. But Zhang Yong briefly explained Fong Ping's situation and added, "The other party said he has a big brother, Wang Jinyang, the vice president of NMAU's Martial Arts Society." I asked Tan Jinping from Sun City. Tan Jinping also said that Fong Ping and Wang Jinyang have a close relationship. Now that Fong Ping was attacked by a martial artist and injured, I'm afraid it won't be easy to explain. The director, who was slightly balding, could not help but rub his head. He said in distress, "Why is it related to Wang Jinyang again?" Zhang Yong said dryly, "It's not just Wang Jinyang. Fong Ping hasn't even become a martial artist, but he's already tangled with martial artists for a long time. If I'm not wrong, he's already completed the preliminary bone honing. Very soon, he'll become a real martial artist. It won't be easy if he doesn't give an explanation for being attacked." "He's completed the bone honing?" The director frowned again. This meant that Fong Ping's vitality had broken through the limit and reached 150 calories. A martial artist was close at hand. It was not a small matter if such a person was attacked. The other party was also this year's martial sciences candidates. It would not be difficult for him to enter the Big Two. A Big Two student and a big brother who was the vice president of NMAU's Martial Arts Society. The director wanted to curse too. Taking a deep breath, the director thought for a while and said, "You go and negotiate with them. This time we're in trouble. Being attacked at the entrance of the examination hall can be a big deal. If they're appeased, then that's fine. If things get out of hand, we'll have to bear the consequences. The province is trying to make an example out of them. Jean Kemming was almost fired. This time, we're in even bigger trouble. If things get out of hand, sigh, my head hurts. Zhang Yong said quickly, I know what to do. Go. Hopefully things will go smoothly. Chapter 66. In the deputy director's office, Zhang Yong deliberated for a moment before saying slowly, this incident isn't targeted at you specifically. Right now, the Auspicious Sun City Military Department and the Department of Investigation Services have been mobilized to carry out a cleanup. Therefore, your worries about revenge are unnecessary. Of course, if you're still worried, the Department of Investigation Services can send someone to protect you in secret for a while until everything is over. Fang Ping felt that the possibility of revenge was low. Also, he did not feel comfortable with someone watching him. However, for the sake of his life and his family's safety, Fang Ping nodded. If possible, I hope that my family and I can be protected. That's not a problem. When you return to Sun City, we'll arrange it immediately. Zhang Yong could not wait for this guy to leave. His subordinates could handle the protection anyway. He did not have to worry about it. After that, Zhang Yong praised Fang Ping a few more times. Young and promising, God's favored one, limitless future. Any other high school student would have been dazed by Zhang Yong's praise. Zhang Yong was a rank 2 martial artist and the deputy director of Auspicious Sun City's Department of Investigation Services. He was considered a big shot in Auspicious Sun City. However, Fang Ping did not take him seriously. After a while, he said shyly, Director Zhang, I heard from my brother that there's a reward for helping the government arrest criminals, especially martial artists. The corner of Zhang Yong's mouth twitched. Did he just praise him for nothing? After some thought, Zhang Yong explained, There's such a thing, but there's a procedure. There are such assistance missions, but they only target martial arts university students. When the Department of Investigation Services is short of manpower and needs assistance, we cooperate with martial arts universities and issue missions together. We only negotiate with martial arts universities and not individuals. Otherwise, it would be a mess. There were many casual martial artists. If everyone could control life and death like the Department of Investigation Services, then what was the point of having the Department of Investigation Services? The Department of Investigation Services would only cooperate with martial arts universities for such matters. This included some missions from the military department. In everyone's eyes, martial arts universities were also a part of the government. Martial arts university students were in the same system as them. It just so happened that martial arts universities also hoped that their students would have more opportunities to gain experience. Both sides benefited from this cooperation, which was why Wang Jinyang and the others had the opportunity to go on missions. Fang Ping was not a martial arts university student. Even if he had assisted them this time, it was still against the rules. When Fang Ping heard this, he was immediately indignant. He rolled up his sleeves and deliberately flashed his black and purple arms in front of Zhang Yong. My injuries are too severe this time. I don't know if it will affect my future martial arts cultivation. Zhang Yong didn't know whether to laugh or cry. After thinking for a while, he said, Student Fang, this is indeed against the rules. After all, a government department was not an enterprise. Some things still had to be done according to the rules. How about this? Zhang Yong considered that Fang Ping was not a big deal, so he said after a moment's deliberation, We'll apply to the higher-ups to give Fang Ping some rewards and compensation for his injuries in the name of acting bravely for a just cause. What do you think? About that, how much can it be? Fang Ping asked, feigning innocence. Zhang Yong coughed lightly. It might not be too much, but we will try our best to fight for it for you. Anyway, what he meant was that it wouldn't be a lot of money. If it was high, it would be 30 to 50,000. If it was less, it would be around 10,000 yuan. As for the hundreds of thousands or millions that Fang Ping had imagined, it was no different from a dream. When Wang Jinyang first accepted Huang Bin's mission, The reward for a peak rank 2 martial artist was only 300,000. After Huang Bin ran away, Sun City raised the price. This time, Fong Ping was only assisting. He was not the one who had captured the man, nor was he the one who had killed him. The tens of thousands was only because of Wang Jinyang. Fong Ping knew that he had nothing to gain from the way he was acting. It was not worth it to apply and do something like that just for a few 100,000 yuan, not to mention using Wang Jinyang's reputation. Fong Ping was also worried that if he made too big of a fuss, the lunatics would find out and seek revenge. If he was rewarded with a few high-grade pills or cash on the spot, he would gladly accept it. Now that he had to apply, Fong Ping could only give up on the idea. He pretended to be magnanimous and said, "Forget it. As a progressive youth of the new era, it's our duty to cooperate with the government and help the people. Besides, it's all thanks to Chief Zhang for saving my life this time. I was just joking. Please don't take it seriously, Chief Zhang." This time, it was Zhang Yang's turn to be surprised. He had thought that this kid would be difficult to get rid of when he was haggling over the smallest details. He did not expect him to be so easy to talk to now. However, it was a good thing that Fong Ping did not pester him. Zhang Yong quickly smiled and said, "Student Fong has an extraordinary temperament. When you enter a martial arts university, you'll definitely soar." Zhang Yong's polite words came out of his mouth as well. Without the entanglement of benefits, Zhang Yong was much more polite than before. He also tried his best to answer some of Fong Ping's questions. Before they parted, Zhang Yong insisted on sending Fong Ping out personally. Fong Ping did not refuse. As they walked, Fong Ping asked, "Chief Zhang, is something like today a common occurrence?" "Not really. They're all clowns. It's rare for such a vicious incident to happen. The reason why it happened this time." Zhang Yong paused and hesitated, but he still explained, "The reason why it happened this time has something to do with Governor General Zhang leading a team to Sichuan for an exchange. A portion of Nanjiang's elites went to Sichuan. These criminals thought they saw an opportunity, so they acted recklessly. Governor General Zhang went to another province?" Fong Ping mumbled and did not dwell on it. Judging by Zhang Yang's expression, this was his limit. When they reached the parking lot, Fong Ping remembered his earlier doubts and asked again, "Chief Zhang, you said before that martial arts universities would sometimes cooperate with these kinds of apprehension missions. Does this mean that martial arts university students all have a certain level of combat strength?" "Of course. But when I talked to Sun City's Chief Tan, he felt that combat techniques are dispensable." Zhang Yong snorted and said, "Let's put it this way. Modern martial artists are mainly divided into 3 categories. First, martial arts university students. Second, martial artists from the military department. Third, casual martial artists. Or we can add another category, martial artists with family heritage. However, these people will usually join martial arts universities. Whether it's martial arts university students or military department martial artists, they all focus on actual combat. Ranks are secondary. These 2 are also the mainstream of society. The third category of casual martial artists is actually not recognized by mainstream martial artists. Many people think that casual martial artists lack intelligence and the necessary combat strength. How can a martial artist be called a martial artist if he has no intelligence and combat strength? These people are worse than martial artists. Martial arts university students are well versed in both the pen and the sword. Military department martial artists may be lacking in culture, but their combat strength is definitely not weak. Only the casual martial artists were mostly useless. They only had their ranks. The Chief Tan you're talking about should be Tan Jinping, right? He came from a casual martial arts training class and doesn't understand a lot of things. You don't have to take his words too seriously." Zhang Yong did not think much of Tan Jinping. He did not even try to hide it, clearly telling Fong Ping not to take Tan Jinping too seriously. These kinds of martial artists were called martial artists but they were just martial artists in name and enjoyed a few privileges. In mainstream martial artist circles, casual martial artists were not recognized at all unless they proved it with their strength. Fong Ping listened to him and said thoughtfully, "So what you're saying is that real martial artists have absolute combat strength and not just for show. That's for sure. But are martial artists' combat strength really useful in this day and age?" As soon as Fong Ping finished speaking, Zhang Yong sneered and said, "What do you think? Didn't you feel what happened today? Although this kind of thing rarely happened, it didn't mean that it didn't happen. If you didn't have a certain amount of combat power today, do you think you could have survived?" Moreover, his opponents had only just entered rank 1. Once they reached rank 3, normal firearms would be of limited threat to them. You can't possibly drive a tank every time you go out on a mission, right? Actually, there were some things that Zhang Yong did not mention, such as the catacombs, of course. He did not know much about these things. His level was not high enough, and he was only a rank 2 at the moment. Under normal circumstances, rank 3 martial artists would be able to get some insider information. Rank 2 martial artists like them were mainly responsible for tasks within their responsibilities. Although Zhang Yong did not elaborate, Fong Ping could already feel it. How long has it been? First it was Huang Bin, then it was the attack of the cultists. Sometimes society was not as stable as they thought. Without coming into contact with this world, being an ordinary person for the rest of his life, he might not be able to come into contact with these things for the rest of his life. Now that he had entered the martial artist circle, would he be willing to be like Tan Jinping, holing up in Sun City for the rest of his life? Sun City was too small. Tan Jinping was willing to endure hardship, but Fong Ping was not. Originally, he was still hesitant about whether he should cultivate some combat techniques to defend himself. Now it seemed like he should. He did not know when he would need to accumulate enough vitality to break through rank 1, but it was still necessary to cultivate some combat techniques. Also, the Genesis sect had dared to attack in public today. Although Zhang Yong said that Auspicious Sun had already arranged for people to clean up the scene, the people at the scene were either dead or captured. Who knew if there would be a next time? He had been targeted this time, but what about next time? Therefore, he had to be prepared for the worst. He needed to have a certain level of combat strength. Although Fong Ping did not gain anything this time, he had fought with a real martial artist and learned some information from Zhang Yong. Fong Ping did not come out empty-handed. Right now, what Fong Ping lacked was not resources, but knowledge and understanding of these things. When he returned to the hotel, Wu Zhihao and the others had already returned. They did not know that Fong Ping had been attacked. Everyone was still discussing what had happened. However, Auspicious Sun had already publicized the incident and dealt with it lightly. Moreover, no one had died, so everyone only talked about it as if it had nothing to do with them. When they found out that the criminals had been captured and some of them had been killed on the scene, they were not in the mood to talk anymore. After lunch at the hotel, the convoy from Sun City began to return to Sun City in the afternoon. Staying in the hotel for another day would cost a lot of money. Moreover, something had just happened in Auspicious Sun City. No one wanted to stay here for long. Sun City was safer. After getting on the bus, Fong Ping's expression became slightly dazed as the bus gradually drove away from Auspicious Sun City. Originally, he had come to Auspicious Sun City purely for the exams. Gradually, however, as various things happened, especially today's attack, Fong Ping's understanding of martial artists deepened. What Tan Jinping had said to him was also completely forgotten by Fong Ping. Sun City was too small, so small that Tan Jinping and the other big shots in their eyes were not recognized by the real mainstream. Governor General Zhang was out. The Genesis sect attacked martial arts students helping the government with cases. These things gradually formed a line in Fong Ping's mind. He always felt that there were some things he did not understand. Soon, Fong Ping muttered in a low voice. After finishing the final cultural studies exam, he would not be far from entering a martial arts university.